In the beginning of everything, there were the black-winged and white-winged monsters. The two monsters were at enmity with each other and did not stop their battles for thousands of days and thousands of nights, and the world was plunged into endless chaos. But one day, God appeared in the form of a woman, and, having subjugated two monsters, built a kingdom, which later became known as Logos. 2 years later, the woman became queen and ruled the people, and the monsters next to her brought prosperity to the kingdom. Then they turned into people. These people became the first nobles called guardians of the Logos. White-winged Santella and black-winged Ryubei, the two families defended the kingdom with the help of extraordinary magic inherited from their ancestors. Other nobles split into white and black factions, depending on the family they supported. This is how they managed state affairs. However, among the guardians of the sacred Logos, a man with an incomprehensible power was born, about which it was difficult to say whether it was a curse or a blessing. That's why people called him the Devil Duke. Meanwhile, some girl stopped the carriage. She stood right in front of her and asked the Duke to stop for a second. He asked how she could jump out in front of a moving carriage. The girl asked the Duke to listen to her at least once. The Duke's butler noticed that it seemed that someone else wanted to meet with His Excellency, and he asked what they should do. The Duke said that it was very quiet for some time. The sooner he meets her, the sooner he will end this. The guy asked the conductor to stop the carriage. It was Kahil Rubei. The current Duke of the Blackwings is Ryubei. The girl noticed that the Duke was finally looking at her. She exclaimed that she had already exhausted herself, thinking about him. She asked if the Duke did this on purpose at the New Year's celebration. Kahil turned to her and asked if she had said everything she wanted. This is love. It can't be anything else. The girl fell in love with the enemy, so strong that he can't even express it in words. The Duke decided to pretend that he had not heard this, and he asked the girl on the way back to drink a cleansing potion from the temple. She exclaimed that if the Duke did not accept her love, she would die. She spoke quite seriously. The girl asked him to come to Aaron's temple this evening, in order to swear there their eternal love. This lady didn't let up. She said that if the boy did not come, he would see her dead body tomorrow in the temple. The Duke asked why threaten someone you love. Truly, what amazing love. He had nothing more to say, so he continued on his way. The girl shouted after the Duke, wondering if he was okay. Why should something be wrong? After all, this is not the first or second time. It was some kind of terrible dream. Someone's hands were reaching out to the boy. The voice didn't stop. He shouted that he loved him. Someone's hands were reaching out to the guy, asking permission to touch him. The voices insisted that he was not a man. He was a seducer from Rubei who bewitched innocent people. He is the devil who seduces people. All those who are possessed by this devilish power are the same. It's even a kind of relief that today everything ended so quickly. He was fed up with this. And I thought about whether it would be better if something new happened. How bored he was. Everyone is the same. Jalal approached the Duke. Kahil asked him if there was any interesting news. Come to think of it, a rumor recently surfaced about Viscount Delroy. Was he harassing the noble lady again? Yes, this time he insulted the daughter of an aristocrat from the white faction, which after that he was expelled from the capital. I heard that people are blaming him for this again. Jalal didn't even think that anyone would dare to mention His Excellency. Apparently there is someone who supports him. He hopes that this man will sit quietly in Karyug. They'll have to wait and watch. The boy was sitting in some kind of stable on a pile of straw. A girl approached him. He looked at her and called her Reina. The girl was holding something behind her back and asked the boy to guess what she brought. Rena was the maid of the Fidelia family, the lords of Karyug. She pulled out an apple from behind her back. The capital's noblemen spent a lot of money in the Nerig market, so the fruit seller gave her the leftovers because he was in a good mood. The girl exclaimed that thanks to him, she also sold all the herbs she had. If only every day were like today. Rena laughed and said that if every day was like this, then even listening to Lady Elliot scold her all day long wouldn't be so bad. The boy patted the girl on the head and said that thanks to Renee, he could eat apples. Rena smiled sweetly and sincerely. The guy asked why a capital aristocrat would come to such a wilderness as Karyug and throw away money. Rena replied that perhaps he came to receive treatment at a sanatorium. Then someone called the girl, and he said that the owner was looking for her. He asked where this girl had gone. Rena was afraid that the gentleman was looking for her, and she said that she would return later. The girl wondered why they were looking for her at such an hour. What could have happened there? Knocking on the gentleman's door, she asked if he was looking for her. The man replied that he was really looking and asked to come in. And here, we have the Fidelia family. The girl noticed that even Elliot's people were here. She asked why they were looking for her. Then the woman sitting next to the gentleman explained to Renee that she was already 18 years old. Rena replied that she would never forget the kindness they showed her. The woman with a fan in her hands replied that, of course, she shouldn't forget about it. And she asked if the rumors had reached her, rumors about a nobleman who visited their lands. The woman exclaimed that it didn't matter whether she knew about it or not. She still seems to be close to him, because he is going to marry her. The woman explained that it would be soon. It's so generous of them. The sister spoke. They show her such mercy. The chance to become a nobleman falls to only one person in 1,000. Rena was very scared. She exclaimed that she was just a maid. She is not of noble blood at all. The sister noticed that the girl seemed familiar with this topic, and she asked her not to worry about it. They will add her to their family tree. For a bastard like her to be on the family registry is a great honor. The man told his wife that the Viscount wanted a wife from the family of Baron Fidelius. What if they get caught? This is not entirely wrong. The man said that he was not sure about this. She is not his child. Who would even believe this? Does he really think anyone ever saw her come and go from her mother's house? And after she died, the man brought the child to her house. She was very upset. The woman exclaimed that it was a shame even that he brought her from the street. But what would have happened if her mother was also from the estate? It would be a shame for their family. Then he exclaimed that he didn't think they would look into the family registry in detail, and he asked me to do as his wife suggested. My wife said it was a great choice. In this case, the marriage to Viscount Delroy must be confirmed. Thanks to this, the Fidelia family will be able to proudly rise to the level of the capital's aristocracy. After they told the poor girl about their plans for her, the woman said that she could go as that was all. The girl's not-native sister exclaimed how good it is that she has Rena. How can this old man propose to her when he is already over 50? She also heard that he could not have children. Just the thought of sharing a bed with such a pervert frightens her. The girl immediately hugged her mother. She, in turn, asked her daughter not to worry. After all, they have Rena for this. Meanwhile, a man hit the table with his hand. He asked what this nonsense was. They tell him to leave for the capital. How can the Duke of Ruav do this to him? I couldn't intercede, so I decided to throw him out. The guy stood in front of this man and asked him why he even touched the young lady from the white faction. The man asked him to shut up and not say that it was his fault. Kahil Ruav, how dare some shaman, intoxicating both women and men, humiliate him like that? Demon of the Ruav family. There is simply no limit to his arrogance. Since this happened, he will wait for another chance. At this time, you can prepare the plan that Viscount Horace spoke about. You'll have to stop in the village for a while, and it's more difficult to meet girls there. The man asked who the owner of those lands was. Isn't it Baron Fidelia? The guy answered him that he really was. He has a young daughter. The men immediately began to drool when he heard from the young daughter. And I decided that provincial life was going to be quite interesting. He didn't even think about lying low. As soon as he arrived in Kerouac, he decided to become related to the Fidelia family. The Duke exclaimed that he was ashamed that such a person belonged to the Black faction. He asked Count Gerard Ranthiel, an aristocrat of the Black faction, if there was news from Ruvahala. Gerard replied that there was no news. However, didn't the Duke and Marcus Ruvahala Ronyak first meet at a reception? It seems to him that it is still too early to hear from him. The Duke asked the guy just not to talk about the fact that he wanted to release demonic power. Cahill crossed his arms over his chest and smiled sweetly. He said that maybe just a little bit. Gerard exclaimed that this was not a force he could control, but a curse from which he wished to be freed. Why does he want to use it? Cahill asked the guy if he was also a shaman for him. Gerard wondered if this was what Cahill meant. The guy replied that because of this curse, he was forced to live in fear. Shouldn't he use it when he needs it? And he asked Gerard if he was worried that he might seduce him. Cahill asked the guy not to worry. He himself does not want to see how he is exhausted, intoxicated by the smell. Everything will be fine until he removes Kalia in front of him. The guy pulled out a bottle of potion from the closet and put it on the table. He asked the Duke to always carry this purification potion with him, just in case. Gerard lowered his head and replied that he understood him. Cahill asked if he remembered that day. He seemed to be 10 years old then. It seems there was a New Year's banquet. He talked about exactly when he used this damn power. The boy asked if he really needed to go alone. He was afraid that something might happen again. The man answered the boy that the Duke said he would soon go to the banquet hall. In the meantime, the knights will protect him. And he asked the boy to put on a cloak from the temple. The boy thought that the questionnaire was a place where very important nobles gathered. The noble people who came to the festival are the pillars of the noble Logos. These are loyal knights protecting the queen. They do not succumb to his curse easily. The boy put on his cape and prayed that nothing else would happen to him. He felt a strange atmosphere. Everyone was drawn to him, saying how wonderful he was. Hands reached out to him, and voices asked for a hug. The boy thought that these were definitely reserved and decent people, which is why they behaved this way. They kept asking the boy to hug them at least once. He didn't want this, and he asked not to approach, because he was scared. People around said that it belonged to them. People argued, pushing each other away. They talked about how beautiful Cahill is. Someone from the crowd shouted his name. The boy approached his father. The father's name was Damien Ruave, and he was a duke. He calmed the boy down, and he told him that he had done well, and now he could relax. The girl standing opposite the man asked what it was just now. The man could not understand what he had just been doing. People have finally come to their senses. Cahill thanked his father. But the boy was definitely an evil spirit, intoxicating the nobility. It's just terrifying. Someone told His Majesty that he dared to desecrate the place where he was present. And pointing their finger at the boy, they asked to punish this demon. Everyone was saying that he needed to be kicked out immediately. It needs to be sent to the link. Drive him out as far as possible. The father hugged his son and asked him to just come home soon. A demon was born into the Ruav family. All the nobility were ashamed of having succumbed to demonic power, and therefore a petition to bring the boy to justice. The queen ordered the wearing of Kalia, a sacred relic that suppresses demonic nature. Because of this, the family's reputation plummeted. In addition, over time, the demonic power only became stronger. Now it is difficult to suppress it with Kalia alone, so the Duke uses his magical power. The Duke, who has so many peasants, cannot acquire at least one servant. Anyone who hears it will probably laugh at this. The guy was very thoughtful, and then Gerard called out to him. Cahill explained that he got a little distracted and told Gerard he could go, and he asked him to take the purification potion with him, after which they said goodbye to each other and wished them a good day. The tea brewed by the Duke was always tart and cold. He always dined on cold food alone. He was never helped while bathing, despite the title of Duke. Cahill closed his eyes thinking about it. Probably in the future he will never be able to feel human warmth. The guy thought that he was very tired of this. Meanwhile, the girl they wanted to introduce instead of another was being prepared for a meeting with a vile groom. She was asked to watch her posture and raise her head slightly. When the girl was put in order, she was completely ready. They told Renee to wait here for a while until they left. She was very scared. The boy, Rena's friend, had said before that they were definitely up to something. Marrying a commoner to a viscount is bullshit. If she suddenly felt danger, the guy asked her to run away immediately. He will help you get to the outskirts of Kerouac. Once she got there, even Baron Fidelia would not dare to touch her. Rena thought that everything was as Sid said. The Baron was offered such good conditions, and instead of the young Mrs. Elliot, they gave her in marriage, and her so-called husband hasn't even shown his nose in almost 3 months. She didn't even see him. They are definitely hiding something, otherwise they wouldn't do this. The girl who was supposed to get married instead told Renee that she should be very glad to meet her future husband. She's been taught etiquette for weeks now, so she can handle it. The Viscount is quite forgiving, so she thinks he will forgive her ignorance. And then the sister glanced at the door. She exclaimed that it looked like the man had already arrived. Renee hoped this wasn't the worst. And now, the groom was already met at the doorstep by Mrs. Fidelia. She told Duke Dalian that it was possible that the Viscount, who lived in the capital, would find the castle shabby. The man replied that having arrived at Kerouac, he had already stopped expecting anything. Fidelia said that their baby is quite young, so she still lacks a lot. And she asked the Viscount not to be too strict. He promised to teach her everything and take care of her. And then he saw Renee in front of him. Dalian began to drool. Licking his lips, he realized that this was the same daughter of the Fidelia family who would become his wife. The girl was very upset when she saw Viscount Dalian. He began to reach out to her, noticing that she was very beautiful. Kissing his hand, he hoped they would get along. Fidelia told the Viscount that he was now related to their family. Then, the matter that was not discussed should be his. The Viscount replied that of course he would really leave his future father-in-law aside, and he asked me not to worry about it. Renee was very worried. For her, this situation was some kind of hell. You can't have such a question. Then her sister took her roughly by the hand. She asked the girl how she felt after meeting her hubby. Rena hoped that wasn't true. Will she really have to marry him? The sister asked what she was talking about when she had already gone so far. They told the girl that if she wanted to become a good wife, she had a lot to learn. The family asked Mrs. Marvin to teach Rena how to behave in the bedroom. The woman replied that she understood. The girl who was supposed to marry instead of Rena asked her to charm the Viscount. If he leaves her, she will have to work in some fast food joint for the rest of her life. Rena couldn't believe that this was happening to her, and she needed to know all this. Mrs. Marvin asked her to read carefully. Looks like they gave her the Kama Sutra to read. Marvin asked the girl not to look away, but to remember everything well. Ms. Elliot had given her advice before. Taking the girl by the chin, Mrs. Marvin said that she should try. Only then will she live happily. She needs to work tirelessly and earn the love of the Viscount. Is she speaking correctly? Rena had only one thought, to quickly escape from there. She must immediately get away. And then, a message arrived from Viscount Horace. He writes that he is going to detonate a bomb in the heliotrope mine of the Duke of Ruava, and he needs help. It looks like he has begun to implement his plans. But will everything really go like clockwork? The heliotrope mine is not his only source of income. Will this somehow affect the Duke's authority? Everyone is so wary of him. Isn't this blue-eyed boy too arrogant? The Viscount sat thoughtfully with a cup of tea. He exclaimed that he was only 23. What kind of duke was he? The problem is also in the past Duke of Ruave. Even though his wife was sick, there was no point in transferring authority to the milksucker, and in general, he doesn't like him at all. The gentleman agreed with the Viscount, and he said that it's even scary to imagine how outraged Viscount Horace was, considering what he did to his young, beautiful daughter. The daughter whom the Viscount so cherished committed suicide due to the possession of that damn demon. Is there a parent who can let someone get away with this? The Duke of Ruave clearly deserves punishment. The man said that it is very difficult to imagine what it is like to lose a little daughter. This is all too sad. The Viscount sitting next to him exclaimed that he had very cruelly rejected the poor woman who was ready to give her life for him, after which he slammed his fist on the table and said that their nobility must gather their strength and protect Logos from this demon, or at least lock him in the mansion and contain him. And execution would be the best solution. He will send Viscount Horace a bank check. Then it will be easier to accomplish your plan. The man decided to make him pay for his exile to the village. Clenching his fist, he was serious about Cahill Ruave. Meanwhile, Cahill exclaims that Dalian and Fidelia are quite impatient. There are, of course, a few small fry, but Viscount Horace from the White faction played a significant role. Cahill asked his friend about Viscount Horace. The guy replied that he thought it was all because of what happened between him and his daughter. Cockle asked what he was talking about and which daughter he was talking about. The guy asked if he didn't remember. Cockle replied that no and asked who she was. The man recalled the girl who jumped under the carriage. She also asked him to come to the temple. Cahill realized that he was talking about that drugged girl. It's about her. She was found dead in the temple. It seems that Viscount Horace is completely obsessed with the idea of UAT 200, revenge on His Excellency. These are the fools. After all, the Viscounts who are going to oppose the Ruave family are so weak. The guy said that the bombs installed in the heliotrope mine were safely defused. Well, there's one problem. Cackle asked to tell about her. Explosives were installed in 2 Cahill carriages. The Duke asked if he was really trying to kill him, and I thought it was quite funny. Kakel asked the guy to prepare everything to capture them. He wants Viscount Horace and Viscount Dalian brought to justice immediately. You asked if he could entrust everything related to this matter to him. Will the boy cope? Looking at the Duke, the guy smiled and replied that he could handle it. He asked His Excellency to rely on him. Meanwhile, Rena sat in an empty, cold room. Several days have passed since Viscount Dalian visited her. Preparations for the wedding went smoothly. Elliot, who was supposed to marry that vile old man instead, mocked her. Thoughts about escaping Kerouac crept into her mind. But Mrs. Marvin does not lag behind for a minute. And the soldiers are watching her too. The girl was thinking, what should I do now? Is she really doomed to marry that old man and live with him until the end of her days? Rena looked out the window and thought about what was happening on the street. It was somehow too noisy outside. Why are there so many soldiers around? Some guy gave the command to search the whole place, never missing those people. The girl listened and realized that she could not hear the soldiers standing near her room. Does she really have a chance to get out of here now? Rena got up to open the door. She pulled the handle, but nothing worked. The girl realized that there was no one. So something really happened down there. There's no time for that now. You need to take advantage of the opportunity to wear your feet. Then they noticed her, and the lady pointed her finger at the girl. The woman exclaimed that it was young Mrs. Elliot Fidelia, and she asked to be arrested immediately. Rena began to run, explaining that she was just a servant, but they took her by the hand and asked her to follow them. Rena was thinking, since when did she become Mrs. Elliot? And she was also arrested. She asked these people to let her go, explaining to them that she knew nothing. The guys noticed that everyone in Fidelia's family was very noisy. She was asked to stop whining, and they said that she would soon find out about everything. The girl was thrown into prison and asked to sit quietly. She begged to be released, and she insisted that she was not a young mistress. Then they grabbed her hand and asked her to sit quietly. Mrs. Fidelia was also in prison. The girl asked if the owner was here. The woman asked the girl to listen to her carefully, and she said that from now on she is Elliot Fidelia. Fidelia said that there was no time to explain, and she asked the girl not to behave rashly. Although everything happened suddenly, they will be released soon. Approaching the girl, she threatened her that if she said too much, then not only she alone would be in danger, but also the Sid family. The Fidelia family is the 7th-generation family of Kerouac barons, aristocrats with a deep history. They definitely won't end up like this. A guy approached their cell. He noticed that they were too loud, and he said that they behaved so noisily while in custody. These are the manners of the Fidelia family. The man began shouting to Duke Ruavu that noble people should not be locked up just like that. He cannot do this to them, even if he is a duke. The guy replied that the dukes of Logos have the right to punish nobles, starting with the barons, for their crimes. And he said that they had just been stripped of their title at the trial, so he is no longer a baron. The man began to shout that this was all some kind of misunderstanding. Viscount Dalian came up with everything. They had to obey. So he begs him to have mercy on them. To which Cahel replied that he was just about to personally show this mercy for them. He raised his hand up, exalting his magic pendant. The prisoners noticed that the boy was very merciful. If he lets them live, they will be loyal to the Duke. Cahel decided to make it not as painful as it could have been. After which, he began to deal with this family. He remembered how they surrounded him, and everyone wanted to hug him. The guy recalled a declaration of love for him, and he exclaimed that it was very wonderful that they were happy now. He waved his blue pendant and dealt with the pitiful people. Cahel heard someone crying behind bars. He saw a girl sitting who asked him to spare her. Rena cried, looking at the boy. He noticed that she was not influenced. He did not fully use the demonic power, because he only needed to bewitch the Baron and his wife. He didn't think this would happen. How disgusting it is, but the matter will have to be completed. With this amount of demonic power, she wouldn't feel anything. Cahel extended his hand to the girl and asked her to come to him for a minute. Rena again asked the guy to spare her. When the girl began to approach, the Duke could not understand what was happening. She is not influenced at all. This girl is very close to him. Even though he released so much power, she still remained sane. Rena came as close as possible to the bars, looking at the boy hopefully. He kept trying to understand what was happening. Does his power really have no effect on her at all? Besides, She so easily begs him for mercy. She does not have the pride inherent in the daughter of a noble family. Cahill approached her and asked her to tell him what her name was. The girl said that her name was Elliot Fidelia. Not believing her, he again began to ask if she was really the daughter of the Fidelia family. Rena looked down, and I decided to tell the truth. The girl explained that in fact Baron Fidelia is her father, and the lady is not her mother. Cahill noted that for some reason he had not heard that Elliot Fidelia was an illegitimate child. It turns out that she is now serving him in person. Then the girl asked him to wait, and she exclaimed that she was not really young Mrs. Elliot. She is a maid of Fidelia Castle, Rena, and asked for forgiveness for lying to him. Ask Cahill if she thinks that this dress she is wearing is too good for a maid. Rena explained that the mistress made her wear it. Cahill thought that she had her own story: illegitimate child, servant, and also a girl who does not succumb to the influence of force. Is this really all an accident? Cahill asked the guards to get rid of the corpses. He explained that he was taking this girl to the Ruov mansion. The boy firmly decided on this, since she was the only one who could approach him without becoming possessed. Cahill asked the girl if her name was Rena. The boy asked the girl to come closer. He noticed that even after completely releasing the demonic power, she did not become possessed, and the removed Kalia could not enhance the effect in any way. This is all too suspicious. Cahill realized that most likely the Baron was using her so that his real daughter could escape. Therefore, it would be unfair to execute her instead. But it is known that she is the illegitimate child of Fidelia. Whether she is executed or not will depend on how useful she is. From that moment on, he asked the girl to answer honestly all the questions he asked. If she is the illegitimate child of a baron, her mother was a foreigner, and working as a maid, she was almost married to Viscount Dalian instead of Elliot Fidelia. Is he saying it right? Rena replied that everything was correct. He thought that they had deceived the Viscount. If this is true, then the Baron was braver than he seemed at first glance. Even if that was the case, it was still stupid. There are two options for who this person could be. The victim with the rarest feature is not visible, or a spy sent by one of his enemies. What if the Santella family hired her? No, in any case, everything said may be a lie. At the moment, there is no way to find out the truth. Then he decided to leave her next to him and find out if she really was like that. Cahill asked what she was doing in Fidelius's castle, working as a maid. Doesn't he really need to listen to what benefits he can get from her? Rena said that she has been working since childhood, so she can handle almost all the housework. Washing, cleaning, cooking. She served the young mistress. He can also read. Cahill thought that the girl was most likely in despair. He asked if she was courting the male owner. Rena exclaimed that if he undertakes to teach her, she will try hard. The girl apologized for such a question and asked if she would have to serve him at night. He wanted to know why she was asking this. Rena explained that she had never done this, and it didn't look very good on the face. Therefore, he does not think that she can make him happy. Cahill said that she was accepted. He will notify the butler, and she can take this week to get used to the mansion. And with the next one, she can become his personal maid. This is the decision the Duke of Cahill made. The girl could not understand how a commoner like her could occupy such a high position. The guy exclaimed that she told him that anything would suit her, or she lied again. Rena immediately replied that no. Cahill asked the butler Ardo to teach this girl everything. The deadline is next week. He explained that she would become his personal maid. The butler was very surprised. Did I hear him wrong? Cahill has his own personal servant. The guy replied that he heard me. The girl has extensive experience working as an ordinary maid, so he won't have to bother with it for long. Ardo was seriously surprised, and the boy, in turn, said goodbye to Rena until next week. He again began to remember how people ran after him. They shouted after him that if his feelings were not reciprocated, they would kill him. How long will this continue? Will he really be persecuted endlessly? Many people reached out for him. Why is he trying to escape? They grabbed him by his clothes and shouted that they became like this only because of him, after which they confessed their love to him. Cahill thought that it was really all because of him. Just for everything to be resolved, does he really have to die? The Duke woke up again from a bad dream. Looking at the clock in the back of his head, he thought that this was not the first time he had had this dream. Rena, in turn, was already in the boy's room. She wished good morning to His Excellency, after which she opened the curtains by the window. Meanwhile, the butler informed His Excellency that Viscount Dalian had committed suicide. They said he hanged himself. Then it turns out that the verdict and amount of compensation in the ongoing trial will likely be different. Catchell replied that from the very beginning, his goal was not his condition, so somehow it didn't matter. In any case, he is still a member of the Black faction, so we need to find out about the next successor. He said that this girl came to him this morning. He was surprised, because no one had appeared in his room for a long time. The butler was surprised, and asked if she had caused him any inconvenience. To which the boy replied that most likely it was the other way around. He scared her half to death. He's one of those guys who just immediately pulls out his sword. When he pulled it out, Rena immediately fell to the floor in fear. The boy explained that today, according to the girl's plans, she has training. He asked the butler to keep an eye on her, and so that he does not talk about his curse. Ardo was surprised that the guy decided to keep this a secret. Cockle is tired of explaining that he, the one who cannot keep a servant nearby, suddenly has a maid with a special feature. It seems that everything is already too good. The Duke ordered the butler to keep a close eye on her. Ardo called the girl to show her part of the mansion. She immediately ran after him. Rena thought that it was her first time in such a beautiful place. Isn't this a real castle? It seems clear now why everyone is proud of this work. The girl clasped her hands, opening her mouth in surprise. Ardo told the girl that she knew nothing about His Excellency. Rena replied that it was so. She lived in Kerouac all this time. Therefore, little reached her. The butler asked when she first met His Excellency whether she felt anything for him, and he asked her to be honest. In fact, he seemed to her to be a rather scary person. That moment in prison was very strongly imprinted in her memory. So, even when he smiles at her, remembering what happened, she becomes scared. After the girl told about this, she apologized to the butler for talking all sorts of nonsense. The butler looked at her and thought, does the curse really not affect her? It turned out that he said it out loud. Rena asked the man what he had just talked about, but Ardo replied that it was nothing. She is only required to take care of His Excellency. The butler asked the girl to follow her. He wanted to tell her about tea-time responsibilities. Rena told Mr. Butler that as far as she knew, a high-status maid would do this. Then maybe it would be better for her to learn something else. Ardo turned to her and said that he forgot to tell her something. She is the only servant in this mansion. Meanwhile, Elliot's girlfriend was thinking about where her parents had taken her. No matter how long she waited, there was not even any news. Has something really happened? The decree was posted. What is written there? The girl read that today Baron Cedric Jenkins is being appointed feudal lord of the province of Kerouac. Along with this, it is announced that the Fidelia family is deprived of their titles and beheaded. Others said that too much was taken from ordinary people, and that served them right. They got everything they deserved. The girl was very scared reading this. The death of the entire family due to just a few meetings with Viscount Deloigne. They could not go against his authority, so they had to indulge. Such a ruthless decision. Duke Ruav is truly an emotionless demon. The girl covered her head with her hands and exclaimed why life was so cruel to her. What should she do now? She was very upset, so she decided to go to the Santella family. They are the only ones who can resist Ruavu. In addition, these are people who are called the embodiment of angels, so there is no turning away from her. First, you need to go to Arden. No one will help her here. We need to come up with a revenge plan together with Santella. Elliot covered her head with her hood so no one would recognize her. Gritting her teeth, she promised to take revenge on Ruav. Meanwhile, a girl named Rydell entered the hall where her father was sitting. She immediately greeted him, and I asked if he slept well. Rydell Santella was a member of the Santella family, candidate to succeed the Duke of the White faction. The father asked if she had gotten enough sleep and asked her to sit down quickly. The girl exclaimed that she was seeing this tea for the first time. She noticed that it had a wonderful aroma. My father said that this was some new type of tea. Then a guy came into the hall. He asked whether it was necessary for the father to wake up his son, who had recently returned home at such an early hour. Rydell asked Ryan to be at least a little more polite. The boy scratched the back of his head and exclaimed that he really wanted to sleep. Ryan Santella is the eldest son of the Santella family. He said that it was already a miracle that he got up before lunch. The girl said it didn't matter. As a member of the Santella family, He must behave with dignity. The boy replied that he understood everything. Looking at the girl, he said that their Riedel was losing her beauty day by day. She really is just a copy of her father. After she was nominated as a candidate, you couldn't even tell her apart from Daddy. It was fearing this that he left the house. The girl exclaimed that he was exaggerating, and folding her hands in front of her, she said that it had been so long since she had met her brother in the morning. How happy she is about this. While they continued to touch each other, the father was reading some paper and asked both of them to stop. Viscount Horace eventually went bankrupt. His actions were truly reckless. He seemed out of his mind when he took on Viscount Dalian. Well, this is quite expected. Going against the Rual family is too crazy with such pitiful support. It's really sad. But 70 million ruin is too much to compensate. Viscount Horace had a reason to do this. One can only sympathize with him. On the contrary, Riedel is worried that all this will cause even more difficulties for Cahel. The guy asked the girl. She said that she felt sorry for Viscount Horace. Ryan asked his sister what she was up to. The girl immediately hesitated, and she explained that it just seemed to her that this was too much for someone who had lost her daughter. She was asked not to make a fool of herself. She knows very well with what influence all the nobles of the White faction are now cursing Cahel. In fact, she probably wants the Duke to have problems. The girl crossed her arms over her chest and replied that this was not true at all. Besides, there are no people here who would recklessly discuss such things at their religious readings. All these readings, why did they even do them? She asked him to stop immediately. If he continues to attack her, she will get angry. Ryan replied with a smile that he was already silent. The Santella and Ruav families compete with each other, but at the same time they have a hard time. After all, they were comrades who led the country forward shoulder to shoulder, those who will take responsibility for the family in the future. They were very friendly as children, although they grew distant later when Cahel became a duke so early. But they had a sincere relationship, especially Riedel. And even after Cahel took office, she was very close to him. But if it had been her old self, she would not have defended Viscount Horace in front of everyone. Will Santella and Ruav really have to move away from each other in the end? It is very difficult. Meanwhile, Cahel held heliotrope in his hands, a resource extracted from the mines of the Duchy of Ruav. It is mainly used for high-quality lighting. Heliotrope stores sunlight during the day and then releases it back at night. With the help of this mineral, the intelligentsia could enjoy parties until dawn. If you combine heliotrope with lilac ore from the Kingdom of Hildeburn, the light will become twice as bright. The Kingdom of Hildeburn must also be aware of this research. If so, they will try to present their family as the biggest earner in order to win an exclusive contract for the brawl. Marquis of Ruahala Ronyak. You need to use him because he is a celebrity in secular society. And since the Marquis of Ronyak is still the second prince and diplomat of the Kingdom of Hildeburn, then he will be interested in this deal. With his help, Cahel will be able to achieve what he wants. Currently, he is staying in Logos, so it will be easier to contact him. Then Rena appeared in the office. She told His Excellency that she had brought Darjeeling black tea. The guy still couldn't get used to the fact that someone was bringing him tea. He immediately thanked the girl for this. After taking a sip of hot tea, he wondered if this tea always tasted like this. Because of the demonic power, he had already forgotten the taste of the tea prepared by another person. Was he really that nice? Cahel thought that the sincerity of this girl was clearly felt in only one cup of tea. It felt like he had regained a small part of what the curse had taken from him. You can still see the fear in her eyes, but she's a great guy. Of course, it still couldn't be ruled out that Rena might be a spy, but he really wouldn't want it to turn out that way. Rena thought about the words the guy just said. Did the tea always taste like what he had in mind? She steeped the tea leaves for too long, or the water temperature was wrong. Apparently, she couldn't make the tea he was used to. The girl began to worry and decided to try as hard as possible next time. Rena has been working here for quite some time. Serving Duke Ruavu is certainly more pleasant than serving in the Fidelia family. All the local inhabitants are friendly. When she was told that she was the only close servant of His Excellency, she was naturally very surprised. Isn't the Duke the second most important person in the country after the Queen? The personal servant of such a person must be a noble person. Ardo explained to the girl that this is usually the case, but at that moment His Excellency did not want anyone to hover around him. Rena said that she was just an ordinary maid, and a commoner at that. What if she makes some mistake? Ardo told her then that she could rest easy. He is not one of those who kill workers who fail to cope with their duties. Even though Mr. Butler said so, she still can't get out of her memory the sight that happened in prison. The girl approached His Excellency and said that she would help him with preparations for dinner. She asked if anything was causing him any inconvenience. Cockle replied no. She copes with her responsibilities very well. Rena immediately thanked the gentleman. She was surprised that he praised her so suddenly. She didn't even expect this. The main dish is shrimp. No, it's still a calf. Veal dishes, wine for dessert. The girl apologized to the boy and said that she didn't quite hear. Cockle replied that the main thing is that it is not poisoned. So don't let him worry. The boy noticed that this dish was neither hot nor cold, just right and very tasty. Rena was glad that His Excellency liked it. And in the kitchen, they said that she did her best. But it's true, in her opinion, it looks very appetizing. Having swallowed her saliva, the girl thought that it must be very tasty. Cahill noticed how she looked at these dishes and thought that the girl was hungry. Then he called her. Rena asked what happened. The boy explained that there seemed to be not enough food. She was very surprised and said that there seemed to be enough of them. Cackle asked to bring more. The girl obediently went to the kitchen to bring more dishes. She asked the gentleman to wait a little. When Rena returned, she offered the guy some food. Cockle said that he overestimated his strength and the first portion was enough for him. Then he added that apparently she herself would have to eat what she had just brought. The girl was very surprised. Cockle explained that it was time for her to have lunch. But he doesn't want to just waste food, he doesn't like it. Everything is fine, so he asks her to eat. Rena sat down at the table and wondered if this was some new type of bullying. For every rule you break at the table, you get a blow. Or is it torture that leads to indigestion? She was lucky that she taught etiquette in the cafeteria. The girl began to eat with appetite and thought that she couldn't linger for a long time, so she needed to finish the meal quickly. But it was very tasty. Cockle asked if she liked it. The girl exclaimed that it was her first time eating such meat. It was simply delicious. Cahill said that it tasted really good. Rena said that she heard that shellfish were brought from the province of Ivana for the soup. The boy replied that they are really famous for their seafood. Cahill told the girl that an important guest would arrive this week. He asked her to prepare everything well. Rena promised to do everything this way. She thought that today's meal in company with His Excellency was not bad. I wonder why he suddenly wanted to have lunch with her. She grinned and grinned. Maybe he just doesn't like eating alone. It seems that His Excellency is not like other nobles. All he does is work. He does not have many servants compared to the rest of the intelligentsia. And his wardrobe is also very different. Just simple, unremarkable clothes. That's the problem, because he said about the arrival of an important guest. The girl decided in this case to please him, and I thought to do something like this. Something that was within her power. She found a pillow with needles, next to which lay threads. And then, she decided what to do for the gentleman. Since she was busy all night, the girls really wanted to sleep. The deathly silence makes you feel even more tired. I wonder if the male owners sat down like this. The atmosphere is nothing like it was during Elliot's preening. How to diffuse the situation? Rena addressed His Excellency. She exclaimed that his hair was beautiful. Cahill immediately ran to the mirror trying to figure out what was wrong with his hair. Rena was immediately scared because perhaps she had said something wrong. The girl realized that, as she had thought, being a personal servant was very difficult. Cahill noticed that she looked very tired today. Didn't you sleep all night? He remembered that he had heard that novels were popular among maids lately. This child, who was almost forced into marriage, actually wants real romance, like in the books. The guy thought that it was none of his business. He asked the girl to give him a vest. Taking it in his hands, he said that he had never seen this vest before. Did Ardo place an order for clothes? Rena explained that he already had this vest. With the permission of Mr. Butler, she added a little embroidery to it. Cahill was very surprised that she did it herself. He thought the vest looked amazing. And I realized that she looked so tired because of him. She seems to be a more reliable person than he thought. The boy said that it was very beautiful and immediately thanked the girl. Because she tried very hard. Rena exclaimed that she will work even harder in the future. While straightening her shirt sleeve, she noticed a speck of dust on it and immediately removed it. The boy asked if she had ever sewed clothes before. Rena replied that she had little embroidery skills, but she didn't know how to sew the finished product completely. Kakel thanked the girl again. He noticed that she was tired and asked her to go and rest. The girl bent down in front of him and thanked the guy, and she said that with his permission she was leaving. After which I went to rest. Clothes filled with someone's sincerity. Simple kindness without any word of intent. How long had he waited for such a life? Now you don't need to be afraid of everyday life. Cockle exclaimed that he felt very good. Meanwhile, Riedel asked her maid to write that she would be present at this tea party. The lady was informed that a guest had come to see her. She asked who it was. The maid explained that she introduced herself as Elliot Fidelia, and she says that she also suffered in that case connected with Viscount Horace. The girl realized that the maid was talking about the daughter of stupid swindlers. Okay, Viscount Horace, why is everyone else so stupid? Well, is anyone from the family still alive? The maid again asked what her mistress would order. The girl asked to be let in, but only so that no one finds out anything. And so the maid brought the man she was talking about. The hooded girl immediately greeted the lady. The woman asked her to quickly pass and raise her head. Then the girl lowered her hood, removing it from her head. The girl noticed that she was truly an angel in the flesh. Riedel asked to be forgiven for making her wait so long, and she asked what brought her here. Elliot noticed that Riedel was quite a nice girl, and taking off the hood from her head, she looked at her with tears in her eyes. She threw herself on her knees, asking for help. The girl explained that her family was unjustly killed by the Duke of Rouave, and she began to beg to help her. Riedel asked if she understood correctly that Baron Fidelia was her father. Elliot exclaimed that it was so. She is the only daughter of Baron Hans Fidelius, but as far as she knows, the family's daughter Fidelia is already dead. Elliot explained that it was the maid who died in her place. Even though that girl was her father's illegitimate child, she lived like a commoner. She herself doesn't know how this girl ended up there. Then the man who was killed by Rouau was completely innocent in that matter. Riedel said that this was really unfair. But she can't do anything to the Rouau family alone. Riedel said she understood her feelings, and she allowed her to stay in their house for now. How about becoming her personal maid? The title is important. In the future, when you get married, this will serve as a good description in your biography. Elliot immediately thanked the lady, and she called her an angel. She bowed before the lady again, thanking her. Riedel asked to stop and get up from her knees, after which she asked the maid Maria to take Lady Elliot to her room. Maria immediately obeyed. Riedel exclaimed that this would be more fun than she previously thought. Meanwhile, the butler was already greeting Marquis Ruahala Rognac. He asked how the guy got there. Did any troubles arise? The Marquis replied that everything was fine, and thanked you for your kindness. Ardo asked the Marquis to wait a little. His Excellency would come soon. The guy was thinking that the Duke of Rouave is known for keeping people at a distance, and then suddenly he invited him. The second prince of the kingdom, Hildebrun, thought that he was more straightforward than he seemed when it came to business. Even if this is a good opportunity. However, isn't he allowing himself too much, inviting a person and making him wait so long? Didn't the curse remind him that detaining people is very ugly? He doesn't care that Cahel Rouave, the demonic duke, but he won't get caught so easily. And a long time passed before the duke arrived. He thanked the Marquis for waiting, and the Marquis thought that he had really made him wait an indecently long time. But he replied that everything was fine, after which he told His Majesty that he was shining today. The boy thanked the Marquis, but Cockle noticed that addressing Your Excellency is too formal, and he asked to call him Cahel. The Marquis thought this was amazing. He was captivated in an instant. Despite drinking a purification potion a few days ago, he is very attractive. The guy asked in this case to also call him by name. Cockle was glad that they found a common language, and asked him to sit down. The Marquis noticed that it was a little unusual here. Shouldn't the servants take care of them during the meeting? Cahel said that it seemed to him that the Marquis knew that he could not keep ordinary people near him. The Marquis immediately asked for forgiveness if he had been rude. He exclaimed that he was just a little surprised. Cahel understood him and said that usually the butlers of the highest aristocracy do not do this. Previously, Ardo was a knight who was capable of leading an army. He is one of the few who can be under him, but after being seriously injured during a battle with monsters, he took the place of the butler and began to protect him. The Marquis exclaimed that a warrior could make an excellent servant. As he thought, the Duke exceeds all expectations. Ardo thanked the guy for his generous words, with the hope that he will visit them more often. Cachel explained to the butler that the Marquis promised to come again sometime. After all, they are now business partners. If so, Cachel asked permission from Mr. Rukwala to speak directly. He would like the Marquis to lend him his connections and influence to manage the exclusive heliotrope business with the Kingdom of Hildebrun. He means the King and Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Hildebrun. He is the only one who can easily and truly convey everything to them. In return, he will help him establish trade relations in Logos. He heard that he was very interested in this country. Maybe he shouldn't limit himself to just interest. If everything works out, the Crown Prince will see his half-brother's sincerity. This is a noble cause. The Marquis noticed that the guy had already learned everything about him. Cachel said that this is the case. He wants to start developing the fashion sector in Logos. Logos is a place where he can diversify the fashion world and then lead it. Well, now everything revolves only around the young lady of the Santella family. In addition, Her Majesty the Queen is also behind the scenes monitoring the changes. I would like to develop a competitive business. He can really support it. There will be much that will require Her Majesty's approval. The Queen will definitely accept this offer because she is crazy about fashion and art. If he starts, they will provide him with as much help as is required for this. The Marquis understood the Duke. He said that he would try to bring good news about the heliotrope deal. Cahill, seeing him off, realized that he was talking about how they would meet again, next time, and he added that he was looking forward to meeting him. Rukwala noticed that the boy did not spare his heart. He thanked Cahill for today's invitation. When the boy opened the door, Rena appeared on the threshold, with a tray in her hands. Cahill thought that this made things more difficult. If he's smart enough, the Marquis probably already has doubts about Rena's girlfriend. If this becomes known to others, someone from the royal side may capture the girl for research. No matter how much he suspected her of being a spy, with her help he was finally able to feel real life. He couldn't let Rena be taken away just like that. The boy was seriously worried. Then a girl called out to him. She asked if anything had happened to him. Cahill replied that he was fine, and he thought that it was very strange. But looking into those eyes, his soul somehow became calmer. He will soon need to update his wardrobe. Then he thinks that he can admire her in this matter. The guy asked if she had already prepared his clothes. Why was she so worried? The girl waved her hands and explained that it seemed to her that this vest was simply too much for His Excellency, although he certainly looks great in any outfit. The boy realized that she was sad because of his modest clothes. Rena replied that, to be honest, a little yes. Cahill said that after a while he would invite the tailor to the castle. She will need to take measurements. The girl was very happy to hear this. She agreed with His Excellency and promised to try her best. Cahill noticed a sincere smile in her, in which there is no greed, it's not bad for you, especially sympathy. So, finally, someone appeared who could make him happy just by smiling like that. The girl exclaimed that she needed to clear the table. She had completely forgotten. And she said that she would do everything right now. Logos is a country in which power from time immemorial passes through the female line. In the ruling dynasty, there is always a daughter who will be the successor. Having inherited royal power, subordinating the two duchies, she becomes the next ruler. The current Queen Fabiana Ardenia and her husband Archduke Valerian Rupelio have not yet given birth to a princess. The Archduke's birthday banquet was always more modest than the princess's birthday celebration. Well, since there is no heiress, the event will be quite large-scale. Rena now understood why His Excellency was ordering new clothes. Cahill asked the girl after class if she had learned how to take measurements. Rena answered the boy that she had learned. Does he really mind if she does it? He doesn't think maids are allowed to do that. Cahill explained to the girl that he really didn't like it when some people touched his body. And after her appearance, Ardo can afford to rest a little. He's getting tired too. The girl listened to the boy and immediately obeyed him, and she joyfully exclaimed that in this case she would certainly start. First, you need to measure your chest circumference. She asked him to briefly spread his arms to the sides. If he was uncomfortable, she asked him to let him know about it. So the girl approached Duke Ruavu to take measurements. The picture appeared before him again. It's as if someone is calling him and asking him to turn around to give him a look. Again, the voice that asked him to become only his. The voice insisted that he would get him, even if he had to dismember and eat all the pieces of his body. The girl noticed that something was wrong with him. She turned to His Excellency, afraid that she had done something wrong and he was uncomfortable. Cahill turned to her and replied that he was fine. Then the girl decided to continue taking measurements. Having measured the chest, she decided to move on to the waist. Argo, watching them, thought that a maid had finally appeared who could be near His Excellency. He always saw that he had a very hard time because of the curse. And now I was able to see how he enjoys the usual, and it looks like a miracle. Then a girl interrupted his thoughts. She turned to Mr. Butler. He asked what happened. Rena explained that she had already done everything. Ardo was surprised at the girl's speed. Cahill noticed that this had not happened for a long time. Ardo thought about something else while he worked. The man replied that apparently he was too happy about his decision to update his wardrobe, so I was distracted. Since he called the merchant, Ardo offered to look at some brooch. The boy replied that what he had now in terms of jewelry and shoes would be enough. Don't waste your money. Ardo told the girl that he was very sorry. His Excellency refused to buy jewelry, and he wanted to show her the jewelry that was popular among aristocrats. Come to think of it, he should really watch something new. But it's a pity that he doesn't want to do this. Then Kako lowered his head down, closed his eyes, and asked to go after the merchant. Ardo obeyed immediately. The merchant asked how much he was going to buy. The boy replied that, to be honest, he didn't know. Maybe a couple of some stones. Or is it better to choose just one piece of jewelry? Rena noticed that these jewelry were very beautiful. The merchant exclaimed that if he was looking for something discreet, then items made from Morian and Rauchtopaz would be suitable, or he is interested in brooches made of cameo or obsidian. He asked what kind of jewelry the guy would like to buy. Kako leaned towards them and asked the girl for advice. What? Her view will be better. Rena chose a jewel with a bright red stone. This is a red brooch. It matches the color of His Excellency's eyes perfectly. The girl exclaimed that, in her opinion, a ruby brooch would be the best option. The merchant commented that this was an excellent choice. The rubies he received recently are of high quality. Kakel asked the girl to take a look. Maybe she would like something. The man offered the boy a Morian buckle. Cahill agreed and asked for something else. They chose for a very long time. The girl advised some very interesting things, and now they have finally finished their choice. The merchant thanked them for their trust. Kakel called the girl to his place, after which he handed her one of the decorations. He noticed that the girl did a good job today. She began to ask how she could accept such a precious thing. The boy explained that if he takes good care of the owner, then there is nothing surprising in such a gift. She immediately thanked His Excellency, and she remembered when the hostess for whom she worked asked what she had in her hands. She pointed her finger at the girl, asking her to open her palm. Rena replied that she had nothing in her hand. She explained to Ms. Elliot that she was simply adjusting the hem of her dress. Elliot asked if the girl thought she was stupid. She just pretended to adjust her hem, but in reality, she tried to tear off the precious stones. The mistress ordered the maid to undress the girl immediately. She must have hidden something under her clothes. Rena asked not to do this because this was some kind of misunderstanding. She swore that she didn't take anything. Rena woke up from this terrible dream. She still dreams of such horrors. She knows that the moment when her owner hates her can be compared to death. In Fidelia's family, too, the master's word was law. Is His Excellency really the same? No. The Duke is a little different from other aristocrats. He even wanted to give such an expensive thing to the maid. At least he's not the one who will kill her right away. The girl prayed that she was right. Catchell, meanwhile, thanked the Marquise for putting in so much effort. He helped him in the heliotrope business, so he owes it to him too. Cahill noted that this was an ideal place for a personal audience with Her Majesty. The Archduke's birthday banquet would be a great opportunity for him. He asked Mr. Ruahala if this was his first meeting with the Queen. The Marquis replied that no, they had met once at a diplomatic meeting, but he was there as the second prince and was in the shadows all the time, so she is unlikely to remember him. The boy exclaimed that the Marquis would now become Her Majesty's strategic partner. He will definitely take care of it. At today's reception, he may introduce himself as a close friend of Cahill Ruava. The Marquis asked if he would really grant him such a favor. This showed the guy's trust in him. Cahill said that Mr. Ruvahala is not one of those who will go around and tell everyone about the personal life of his close friend. Hearing about his personal life, he immediately remembered a certain incident. The boy meant the one when Reina entered the room. Cahill, approaching the Marquis, said that he thought there was no need to continue. The Marquis himself should understand everything. Ruvahala thought this was an excessive mercy, but he set such a condition. As expected, the Duke of Ruav could not make a mistake. The Marquis replied that he understood the guy. Meanwhile, the boy appeared before Her Majesty and the Archduke. He hoped that nothing bad had happened to them. The Queen replied that everything was fine, long time no see. And I asked how he was doing. The guy replied that thanks to the Queen's grace, everything was fine with him. The current Queen, Fabian Ardinia, laughed and replied that she was happy for him. She told the boy that she had heard that lately he had been working a lot on his trade. The Lord asked Her Majesty for forgiveness for his rudeness, and he put his hand on his heart. The woman asked what he was looking at so intently. She stared at the boy with curiosity. Young Mr. Ryan and Mrs. Riedel from the Santella family have arrived. They were simply wonderful. The boy, seeing them, exclaimed that Lady Santella was truly an angel in the flesh. Because of thoughts about meeting her, he could not even sleep. She exceeds all expectations as always. Shines in a way that others cannot. Lady Santella was invited to talk with them for a while, and they called me to go inside the room. The man asked Her Majesty not to worry too much. After all, she alone is the queen of this country. The woman replied that she knew about it, but still bowed her head down and lowered her gaze. Then it was reported that the owner of Tararuva and Alandoria, Cardelia and Chardin, the Duke of Ruav, had arrived. The queen immediately opened her eyes. They thought that the devil in the flesh, who charms people, had dressed up for the occasion. Looks like there will be a few fainting spells again. One of the guys said that, come to think of it, he didn't drink the cleansing potion today. Another guy handed him a spare one. The girls saw Duke Ruava. Their faces immediately turned red. One of the girls exclaimed that she saw a halo above his head, and I asked if this was a dream. Lady Santella also glanced at the boy. She noticed that Cahill was becoming more and more like the demons of the Tempter. He greeted Her Majesty the Queen. May the glory of the Logos be forever under the Queen's rule. She asked Duke Ruawa how he had been chewing all this time, and she asked who this young man was next to him. Cahill explained that this was his close friend, the Marquis of Ruahala Ronyak. He is his companion today to introduce him to the Queen. The boy approached the Queen and bowed before her and kissed her hand. He said that he hoped she was in good health. The boy introduced himself as Rukwala Ronyak. The Queen exclaimed that now she recognized him when she saw him up close. Isn't he the Prince of Hildeburn? The Queen added that she could not welcome a friend of the Duke himself. What made him come to her? Then the guy began to explain what he wanted to tell the Queen. Rian, watching them, said that as soon as he heard about the result of the heliotrope research, he immediately recruited the Marquis of Ronyak. This is really in the spirit of the Duke of Ruav. Riedel said that her father sent her uncle to Hildeburn too late. It seems he foresaw this too. Riedel exclaimed that it was stupid of them to make a deal with Ruav. A few years later, they were going to reduce the price of ore, and then out of the blue they signed a contract. Although their uncle even warned them about this. Ryan said that Cahill is just very smart. Maybe they should also replace the heliotrope in their mansion with Cahill stone. They say it has good efficiency. Having said this, the boy laughed. Lady Santella asked her brother not to throw words around so easily. Well, it was just a joke, but she reacted so sharply. He even used his hated demonic power. Apparently, he is very determined. Ryan said this to think more positively. Well, the girl answered the boy that he should be a little more serious. Cahill was definitely far ahead of them. What can I say? Because even the former head of the family, Damien Ruave, was also not simple. I wonder if such an ideal person like Cahill has some kind of weakness. Riedel thought about the boy's words. The Marquis said that even though he is a foreign diplomat, he really likes this country. Therefore, he dares to tell Her Majesty. With her permission, he would like to try to open a business in the fashion industry in Logos. The Queen was very surprised by the boy's words. I asked if she understood him correctly. The Marquis replied that everything was correct. He has already received support from Mr. Cahill and is confident that everything will work out. This is also good for secular society. Isn't the Logos Intelligentsia currently in the hands of one man? The queen said that she would look forward to a conversation with the intelligent young man. She asked them to come to the Purple Room in 2 hours. She wants to hear the details, and she asked Duke Ruava to join them too. Cahel immediately bowed to Her Majesty and said that he would certainly come. Then someone said that he had not seen Her Majesty for a long time. Lady Santella approached the queen. She said that the red dress the queen wore today was very dazzling. This image, adorned with magnificent jewels, is like the sun, eclipsing everyone around. Riedel greeted Her Majesty. The queen, seeing that the duke's daughter Santella was also here, exclaimed that she always admired the loyalty of the two duchies. Duke Santella is one of the outstanding people, so she need not worry. By the way, Duke Ruav always surprises her. He is so serious and wise, despite inheriting the title at such a young age. Other nobles should follow his example. The queen said that she would also root for Lady Santella so that she could become the same role model. The girl folded her hands in front of her and thanked the queen for her kind words. The girl sitting in the carriage opposite Riedel said that Her Majesty really allows herself too much. She came to greet her, but the queen spoke only about Duke Ruawa. Even her title does not allow her to mock a girl like that, and the Archduke could not even be noticed because of Her Majesty's dress. It's his birthday. What a pity Mr. Riedel told Maria that saying such a thing was disrespectful. Mary asked whether Her Majesty's behavior was not respectful. She hasn't even given birth to the princess, the future heir. Riedel told Maria that if anyone heard what she was saying, she wouldn't get in trouble. Maria exclaimed to her mistress that everyone in the kingdom had known about this for a long time. She only spoke out of concern. People say that Her Majesty should quickly adopt the young lady and hand over the throne. It would be good if she took this place. Riedel asked Maria to speak more quietly. She understands her feelings, but asks the girl not to forget that she must always be careful in her words. Maria told her mistress that her only drawback was her excessive kindness. Even if society thinks so, it's not time yet. She does not have the power passed down from generation to generation of queens. Without her, even after becoming a ruler, she will not be able to subjugate the Ruav family. They will hinder the growth of Santella's power. Moreover, Cahel can become king. Therefore, you need to be very careful until everything is perfectly prepared. After all, the butler and Rena's girlfriend met His Excellency at the door when the boy returned. He immediately turned to the girl and said that with her help, everything went well. He asked if she had any wishes. Rena replied that His Excellency was too kind to her. She didn't do anything special. Cahel said that it was thanks to her preparations that he was able to get an audience with Her Majesty. Therefore, he asked her to simply say about her desire. Maybe some jewelry. Tomorrow he will call the merchant and take the latest fashionable jewelry of each type. Any jewelry that she likes. Rena thought that she did not need any jewelry. In principle, she doesn't need anything like that. Cahel asked what she would like then. The girl explained that what she really wanted to know was about the people who lived with her in Fidelia Castle. Cahel asked if it was about the people with whom she lived before. Rena folded her hands on her chest and answered that it was about them. After all, they were family to her. She left without even saying goodbye to them. Cahel, looking at the girl, said that if they replaced her family, she probably misses them very much. He tried to understand the girl's feelings. The boy asked her to tell us a little more about them. The girl began to explain that when she was left alone at the age of 10, Uncle Theo built Fidelia Castle for her maid. He himself had a lot to do in the stable, but he took care of her as if he were his own daughter. He asked if it was hard for me, and asked to rest at any time. Sid also protected her, an illegitimate child, along with her uncle. They were like brother and sister. People thought that they were really brother and sister, and she considered him her family and relied on him in many ways. Cahel thought about how they grew up like brother and sister. The girl thought that the boy had become too serious. She immediately became worried. Suddenly, she set him an impossible task that would take him a lot of time. It seems like asking for this is already too much. She exclaimed that apparently she dared to forget about her place and ask him for something. He doesn't have to do it. Cahel inquired that the guy was not her blood relative, but was protecting her, because of which people believed that they were brother and sister. The boy asked the girl not to worry. He will send people to inquire about their welfare. But there's a better idea. You can bring them here. In any case, there are always a couple of hands missing here. Rena immediately crossed her arms and began to thank the boy. She thanked His Excellency from the bottom of her heart. The butler patted the girl on the head and congratulated her. He rejoiced at the girl's happiness. Yes, in turn, she exclaimed that she was really very happy. Cockle thought that even though he knew that he was doing a good deed, he felt unpleasant. Why would it bother him? Meanwhile, two tied men were kneeling in front of the mistress. They asked the woman why she was doing this to them. They asked to be released immediately. The woman explained that a letter had arrived from the Duke of Ruava. He ordered them to be sent to him right away. An illegitimate child, born of a dissolute woman, was spinning around him. She doesn't know what happened, but she apparently greatly disturbed the Duke's peace. The boy immediately started screaming, asking why she hated this girl so much. What did Rena do wrong? After all, this girl was always kind and very good. She didn't do anything bad to anyone. A man standing next to him punched him in the face, asking him to shut up. The mother of this girl, a foreigner of unknown origin, dared to seduce a nobleman and give birth to a child. So, it's natural that Rena should be held responsible for this. The guy said that from a young age, she had been chasing Baron Fidelia. That's why she was jealous that Rena's mother attracted his attention. This seemed to upset her greatly, but she would first look in the mirror. The guy exclaimed that if he were the Baron, he would also remain indifferent to this. The woman began to get angry, something he allows himself to do, and she asked the men why they stood like idols. She gave the command to immediately put them in the cart and send them to Duke Ruavu. And taking the two guys by the scruff of the neck, the man dragged them into the cart. The boy said the girl's name, and with Ren's word on his lips, he was loaded into the cart. They decided that their song was already sung. Otherwise, why invite them to such a place? Well, why? They didn't do anything wrong. Did Rena really die because she was guilty of something? Sid replied that this was not the case. Then the butler turned to them and said that they were probably tired after a long journey. He was holding some kind of bottle with a cross on top. He suggested we drink from it first. They immediately thought that this bottle contained poison. Are they really going to execute them? The man immediately asked the butler if he wanted to tell them the reason, that he wanted to kill them. But Ardo asked why they would do this. The guy asked if there was poison in the bottle. The man explained that it was a purification potion made in the temple. They need to drink it before they meet His Excellency. They lived to come up with this. The butler said terrible things to them. And then, the gentleman appeared on the threshold. The men greeted His Excellency, the Duke of Sleeve. He asked them to skip the formalities and sit down. If anyone saw this, their back would hurt. The Duke asked who was in front of him, "Is it Sid?" To which the guys replied that it was so. Looking at them, one gets the impression that they had a hard time. The younger one looks pretty scared, but not broken. The Duke explained that he had called them here for one reason. He wants to offer a position as keepers of the duchy's stables. Eto wondered why he would hire someone like them. Then, Ruav asked to be let inside. And when Rena saw her family, she immediately ran into their arms. She saw Uncle Theo in front of her. They were very happy that the girl was alive. After which they hugged each other. This was great happiness for them. The Duke of Ruav began to sweat. It was the first time he had seen Rena so happy. She fell to her knees in front of him and said that she did not know how to repay him for such mercy. One thanked the Duke cordially. He asked her to get up from her knees, and he said that he did not do this so that she would bow at his feet. He also asked the guests to sit down. Rena really wanted to know how they were doing. The Duke explained that when he wanted to reward her, she refused the jewelry and asked him to find it. He decided that it would be easier if he offered them work here, since it would be rather unreasonable to send for them every time he wanted to reward Rena. They haven't seen each other for so long. They probably have a lot to discuss. Ardo will give all the necessary instructions, and he turned around and headed towards the exit. The guests exclaimed that they would serve him faithfully. The Duke thought that he could not even imagine that Rena was capable of such vivid positive emotions. But when she's with him, if you think about it like that, he just saw how scared she was. They were definitely worth calling. However, isn't Rena too much of that guy? It doesn't matter that they are like brother and sister. The two are not blood relatives. Having grown up, we hug each other so naturally. He didn't know what about Rena. Well, it seems that Syl definitely has feelings for her. You will have to pay special attention to this. The Duke could not understand why such pictures kept appearing in his head as if he was hugging her. And then another day came. Rena approached the butler and wished him good morning. She asked if he was putting things in order here and offered to help. Rena commented that the freesias were so beautiful. She invited the butler to place these flowers in His Excellency's office. Ardo noticed that since those grooms were brought in, her emotional state had improved. The girl who was afraid of everyone and everything is now full of energy. It turns out that after meeting her loved ones, she felt more comfortable. The butler thought that not only she had changed, but also the behavior of the Duke himself had changed. Due to His Excellency's demonic power, he had to grow up too early. No one knows how deep the wounds he received in childhood are, and he didn't say anything about this to his father, the previous Duke. But after Rena arrived, everything changed in him. The butler approached His Excellency and asked if he had called him. The Duke greeted the butler and said that he wanted to ask him something. He asked to call the merchant who came last time, and before him was the latest issue of the wardrobe book describing the latest new products. Rena advised him, "Nowadays, this style is in fashion." The boy turned to his butler and asked his opinion about this. Does he think it will suit him? Ardo was very surprised that a person who had previously had no interest in clothes began to pay attention to such things. It's probably good that the Duke is slowly changing. The butler called the girl. He explained that His Excellency was due to have tea soon. Therefore, it is necessary to prepare. Then maybe you should trust her, and with its help, conduct some experiment. Rena took the tray of tea and brought it to Her Excellency. She asked the Duke if he would like to take a short break. The guy replied that he didn't notice at all how time flew by. The girl said that today there would also be dessert. The chef himself recommended it. And I asked if it looked appetizing. The Duke replied that no, he did not like desserts. Rena said that it must be really tasty. The Duke asked her to eat this dessert on this occasion. Rena exclaimed that she could not do this. The servants are not allowed to touch the master's food. But if it's not that he didn't finish eating, Duke Rouet remembered what happened to him in childhood. Rena thought he didn't like it, but he replied that everything was fine. After which he thanked the girl and said that now it was her turn. She noticed he tried just a little, and she offered to eat more. In this case, the Duke suggested doing things differently, so that she eats a piece, then he. She replied that in this case she would only eat a little, and she reached for the cake with a fork. The boy stepped aside and turned away and began to laugh. She couldn't understand why. The Duke apologized, and he said that she eats too cute. Rena asked if he was lying. And actually, now it's his turn. A piece of cake was pricked onto the fork. Rena was very surprised because she had just eaten with this fork. The Duke explained that she had visited him a little earlier. She asked for forgiveness for daring to touch his instruments. The Duke replied that everything was fine. No one had died. He said that he doesn't want it anymore, so everything else is for her. Rena exclaimed that this was the first time she had eaten something so delicious. The girl stood opposite the butler. He was very surprised that His Excellency actually tried the dessert. Rena replied that it was so, albeit a little, but still. Ardo never ceased to be amazed. He didn't think it would work. Who would have known that the stubbornness preserved from an early age would collapse like this? Doesn't Rena influence him too much? His Excellency's changes are pleasing, but if she becomes more than just a maid, a lot will change. What would happen if she suddenly wanted to leave the Duke? Is it worth letting everything take its course? The butler's soul was somehow restless. If you remember the events that happened before. The man was telling the Duke, Sleeve's father, that it seemed that after the birth of a young master with strong magical energy, his wife's body had suffered greatly. Now it is not clear what can help her, so it is unknown what will happen in the future. This woman's husband was very upset. He thought so. It was all because of him. The man blamed himself for everything that happened to her, and his son also blamed himself, but only himself for this. The Duke asked the butler how his son ended up here. Then he approached his son and told Keho that everything was not like that at all. He asked him not to cry. The boy exclaimed that everyone around him was saying the opposite. Mom is sick because her son is a monster. The father asked who told him this. These are just rumors. He asked his son not to pay attention. The butler confirmed the Duke's words. By starting to monitor her health, the lady will become better. If you stay away from sweets and start eating healthy foods. The boy said that his mother loves desserts most of all. He asked his mother for forgiveness. When the butler offered dessert to the boy, he was surprised that the boy did not want to hurt his heart. The butler explained that this new dessert was specially developed by the chef for him. But Kakel again refused. The boy said that because of him, his mother could not eat even a bite. So he also refuses. Kahel completely stopped eating sweets. He told the butler that people like him were simply not supposed to eat such things. Ardo remembered the little duke's past, and I realized that this stubborn man suddenly ate dessert at the request of this girl. No matter how much he thinks, His Excellency definitely feels something for Renee. Well, how could it be otherwise? It's natural, knowing how this girl communicates with the Duke. After all, she is the only one who does not succumb to the influence of demonic power while being next to His Excellency. If this continues and Rena actually leaves, everything will return to normal. He will again become the same as he was and will completely stop trusting people. But the Duke will not be able to prevent her future marriage. Is there any hope that Rena has feelings for Mr.? Then some guy came to the gentleman and explained that he had brought documents requiring his approval, and asked if he was going somewhere. It was Gerald. Ruahala wants to discuss the construction plan for the building, and he needs to show that the Duke supports him. Gerald explained that there was a lot of documentation here. It would not be worth leaving. He seems to be spending time with him a lot lately. Kahel asked if he was jealous. The guy asked how he could even think of this. If you look at it through his eyes, his explanation is quite logical. After all, now he is not the only one who bears the title of close friend of the Duke of Rawa. The Duke said that everything was not like that at all. This foreigner just seemed too suspicious. He asked him to forget, since he was going with him. The Duke said that he should do as he wants, just so as not to provoke the Marquise, so that he doesn't do anything bad. Then Rena entered the room. She asked if the Duke had called her. He replied that he called and asked to get ready to leave, so that she would bring him a robe with a hood, and it would be better for her to wear something covering her face. She was very surprised and asked if he was really telling her this. The Duke replied that she had not gone out since she came here. The Duke explained to the girl that there would not be much work. Therefore, all that is required of her is just to be nearby. She exclaimed, "She will bring everything now." Gerald asked His Excellency what was going on. How can she remain so calm? Cahill said it was truly impressive. Maybe it's a maid from the Oranites. And if not, then perhaps the blood of the Santella family flows in her veins. The Duke said that he, too, at first thought that she might be a spy for the White faction. But judging by her actions, it seems that this is not the case. They wondered how then this was possible. The Duke thought, but really how? And now they are already getting ready for the trip. Rena looked out the window in surprise. She said it didn't sound like Kerouac at all. There are so many people there. Cahill smiled and said that if she was interested, she could stop for a while and take a look. He asked her to hold her hand and go down, but not to rush, so that she is neat. Rena immediately thanked the Duke. Gerald exclaimed that they were late for the meeting. He was surprised by His Excellency. The Duke asked the guy not to worry, and he and Rena left the carriage. Looking at Gerald, he said that the Duke could afford to be a little late. The guy, looking at the Duke, thought, when did His Excellency change so much? Rena and Cahill approached a huge, beautiful fountain. She said that she did not know that an ordinary fountain could be so beautiful, and she is very glad that she was able to see something like this. The girl asked what it is that people throw into the fountain. The Duke explained that the coins. If you hit that stand, her wish will come true. She was confused and said that she didn't even know and had never thought about it. He asked if she really didn't have anything that she would dream about all her life. For example, to be rich or live long. He prepared a coin and said that whatever she wanted, she needed to be honest with herself. And then, Rena exclaimed that she remembered something. He replied that he was glad that she had an idea. I asked what her desire was. The girl closed her eyes and thought. She said that someday she also wants to have her own family. The Duke thought, well, if this is her desire, then she really wants to get married. It turns out that in the future, she plans to leave the maid position and leave him. Rena remembered that her mother left their world too early. She held the child in her arms, calling her little baby. And Baron Fidelia may not be her real father. The girl asked to see what a beautiful hairpin they had bought her. Uncle Theo took care of her, like your own father. He stroked the girl's head and said how cute she was. But he was not her blood relative. She hopes that someday she will have a real strong and friendly family. I would really like a simple, quiet life, a warm home, a loving husband, and a happy, smiling child. In a harmonious family that she herself will create, she would like to feel not alone. The Duke looked at her in surprise and asked if her desire was family. The girl replied that it was. He asked if she was looking forward to getting married. Then she must have already thought about when to get married and with whom. Rena replied that, to be honest, she had not thought about this yet. It would just be nice if she had a warm, loving family in the future. The Duke thought that now he felt as if he had lost his breath. But when Rena leaves because of marriage, he interrupted his thoughts and turned to her again. He said that it seemed too early for her to think about marriage. Rena explained that she was originally going to be married to Viscount de Loin. In Kerouac, people get married as early as 15, and in Arden, they get married much later. If I had been a little late, Rena would have become the wife of that idiot. Just the thought of it disgusts him. But the problem isn't just the old pervert. No matter how much he argues, it's too early for Renee to walk down the aisle. He wondered why it bothered him at all. Here the girl turned to His Excellency. He asked what happened. She thanked him. But she explained that the coin he gave her did not end up on the stand. And the Duke replied, "Thank God." She asked why. But he asked her to forget about it. Supposedly she had heard it. He explained that it was probably because the stand was too far away, and he said that he would toss a coin instead. And so the Duke threw a coin and hit it right in the center. Rena was very happy that he succeeded. Cahill exclaimed that he hoped her wish would come true. The Duke of Rouave himself helped her. It will definitely come true. Rena thought that she would just believe that this would happen. The Duke, in turn, thought that he would like her to stay with him forever. When they returned to the carriage, Cahill said that he had to go. He promised to return soon, and the girl was asked to wait in the carriage. No one should see her. Gerald began to hurry. "His Excellency." The Duke replied that he understood and was already finished. Rena asked him to come back quickly. When he left, she began to look out the carriage window and admire the beauty of the surrounding nature. Then, someone saw her through the window, thinking that he was hallucinating. Or there really is someone in the Duke's carriage. Moreover, it seemed to him that Cahill seemed to be very nice to this girl. She's so interesting. The guy who noticed Rena through the window kept thinking, why is the Duke of Rouave's carriage here? And here I was, lucky to see this. What a stroke of luck. He crept up to the carriage and greeted the lady. He asked what her name was. But Rena immediately hid her face under her hood. She thought, what should she do? They saw her. They urgently need to hide. The Duke told her that no one should notice her. The guy began knocking on the window with the carriage and shouting that he was not an enemy. Didn't ask her to talk to him for a bit. People around were saying what this man was doing. A young man rowdy in front of a carriage with a lady inside. This certainly looks a little strange. The guy noticed that no matter what he did, she did not look in his direction. Are all the girls next to Cahill like this? Then someone started talking. The construction of the building seems to be going smoothly. Looks like they'll finish sooner than expected. Silk delivered via the new route is no different in quality from the previous batch. And this design concept was new. Gerald, approaching the carriage, said that he was looking forward to seeing the finished version. The Duke replied that that was all for today, and they were returning. The guy who stood near the carriage sighed and thought that he would like to talk a little with this mysterious stranger. She didn't look like a member of a noble family at all. But what surprised him most was how she managed to be next to Cahill. If Riedel and her father find out about this, they will immediately try to find out everything about her. Then the Duke will most likely hide her to protect himself and this girl. Therefore, it is better not to say anything about it now until he knows for sure. He thought that everything was as I expected. There's always something interesting going on around the Duke, the one who is not affected by demonic power and is also not an aristocrat. He also hides it from everyone. We need to find out more about those who surround the Duke of the Black faction. As for the little girl, they wondered how she could be so beautiful. Really looks like an angel. The woman said that she was indeed a blood relative of the saint. The guy standing nearby asked this child to bless him. Here he took Riedel in his arms and said that she would be at the top of the kingdom. After all, she was sent to them for this reason. He asked her, holding her close to him, to fulfill their dreams. Perhaps she really is the chosen one. Rubid Santellas, also the high priest of the Lyman Church, older brother of the current Duke of Santella, greeted Sister Riedel. The girl answered the priest that they had not seen each other for a long time. The man said that she could call him uncle. She explained that she had come to the temple of the goddess, so she would observe etiquette. The priest replied, "She has a good approach. The Santella family helps them a lot by sending them white jade to create sculptures." He's happy to hear. Making an offering to the goddess always gives great pleasure. Riedel said it is said that the review of the reprinting of the scriptures has been completed. Is everything okay? The priest explained that under the protection of the goddess Lena, no problems arose, and he took out some book as proof. This was the tale of the Logos. An angel and a demon, opposing each other, fought for 1,000 days and 1,000 nights. The demon caused a typhoon and overturned it, turning the earth upside down, and the angel created a light breeze, restoring all the destruction. It looks like everything went smoothly. The priest said that he wanted to find the true meaning of the goddess's words. Therefore, I changed the written passage about the two beasts. Riedel asked what about the part she asked for. The fragment associated with the prophetic book of Malik was also redone. When the old sun sets and the second cold moon rises, and Deneb and Altair turn to Spica, the chosen one will raise the eternal sun. In the 2,000-year Logos, the Santella and Ruav families will fight for the throne, and only one will be able to survive and become the sole ruler of the new era. Everyone prepared for this passage for a very long time. The glory of the Logos that has found a new owner will be endless. Riedel thanked the priest for doing a good job. The printing of this revised edition is very important. The girl promised to distribute 5,000 copies for free. The priest thanked her, and he said that the goddess Lana would also be happy. Riedel asked the priest if he knew about the power. Each ruler of the Logos was born with the power to subdue angels and demons. But over time, the queen's abilities became weaker, and the current one has already reached a level that is shameful even to call strength. Now even the 7 dukes barely obey her. Then will the new owner also become weaker from generation to generation? The priest replied that this is a difficult question. Well, since the book says about the eternal sun, she shouldn't worry too much. What matters now is that the queen's power has weakened, and besides, she never gave birth to an heiress. The current ruling dynasty is so far praised by the people, but soon everything will be as the scriptures say. Riedel asked if these are the characteristics of the queen, but this is the strength of the two families of the dukes. The priest kissed the girl's hand and exclaimed that she was the greatest achievement of their family. They have long enchanted their bodies in order to weaken their obedience and not obey the queen. And finally, she came into this world, a truly perfect man who shows no respect or loyalty to the queen. He added that she would fulfill the long-standing desire of their entire family. Riedel told the priest that the time had come. She will begin the glorious history of the Santella dynasty. This religious book will be the beginning of the expulsion of the demon Ruav from the Holy Land. The priest said that the noble man who inherited the family's desire, may Lana's blessing descend on her. Meanwhile, Reyna remembered the blond man who looked into her carriage. She wondered who he was. It didn't look like they knew each other. She hoped that the hood of the robe helped to hide well, and that everything will be all right. Why did His Excellency say not to show yourself to strangers? Is it really because she is a close maid? She still doesn't know much about what to do. But compared to Fidelia Castle, here she is like a princess. His Excellency not only drinks tea with her every day, but recently even gave her a gift. She was so happy to receive such a gift from the Duke for the first time in her life. She was worried that she was being paid too much. Well, of course, she has to do various things. Well, maybe there is something besides mandatory work that could make His Excellency happy. Then a thought struck her. Clenching her fists, she decided to find a way out. Then suddenly, the Duke appeared behind her. He asked what she wanted to find. Rena didn't expect that he heard everything. The Duke asked what she was thinking about, since she was so frightened. She said it was nothing. She goes to prepare a bath for him. Rena asked if everything was okay with him and if anything hurt. He replied that his muscles hurt a little. I haven't practiced fencing for a long time due to a lot of things to do, which immediately made itself known. Then the girl clapped her hands and exclaimed that this was it. She will help him relax. She asked His Excellency to wait a little, after which he began to roll up his sleeves. The Duke asked if it was necessary to have a massage while bathing. Reina explained that warm water relaxes the muscles of the body, and therefore the massage will be more effective. Therefore, you need to get into the bath and not be stubborn. He thought that even if Reina does not succumb to the influence of demonic power, it is unknown what if something happens in such a situation. As I immersed myself in the bathroom, he said that, as I thought, nothing would work out. Well, the girl began to calm him down. And she said everything was fine. You need to lean back on the edge behind. The Duke thought that for some reason his soul actually became calmer, that he doesn't even want to refuse Renee. She decided to wash his hair first. The girl said that they would put a towel under his neck so that he could lie down. She asked him not to worry and to lean back, after which she asked me to just relax. He did as she asked him. Then I found where it hurt, started massaging my shoulder. The boy froze. She asked him, who would say if it would be unpleasant? The Duke asked her not to worry. Reina noticed that he had been overexerting himself lately. He should take a break. The Duke replied that he was tougher than many others, so he reassured her that he was fine. Even the strong need to rest sometimes. Therefore, he should allow himself to relax. After all, he always works very hard. Reina said that she had already finished the massage, and she asked him to warm up in the bath a little more to relieve tension. Cahill noticed that one of them looked very tired. Apparently, because of him, I overworked myself. Reina replied that she was fine and quite resilient. Therefore, I asked him not to worry so much. She advised that after a long massage, it was better to sleep in a warm place so that there would be no body aches. The boy thanked her and said that he really felt better. Reina was very happy about this. He pulled her towards him with his arms and kissed her head. She looked at him questioningly, after which he thanked her, and he said that now she can leave. Reina was very surprised that this happened now. It was very hot in my chest, and my heart was beating wildly. Is this really how they feel when someone praises them? Elliot was also interesting. It turns out that it is very nice when you are thanked like this. Then, the butler unexpectedly addressed her. Apparently, he was looking for her. She asked what he wanted. Ardo replied that he already needs to prepare for the cold weather, so he asked to tell the chief maid to be sure to hang winter curtains in His Excellency's office and bedroom. The girl explained that she spoke to her yesterday. They should come tomorrow and do everything. The butler praised her for taking care of everything quickly. She looked at him as if she wanted to ask something. She asked him if it wouldn't be too much trouble to pat her on the head. The butler was surprised and thought how hard her life was that she had to turn to him with such a request. He stood for quite a long time, looking thoughtful. Reina thanked him and said that she was already leaving. He decided that she was very funny. The girl noticed that it was somehow strange. The feeling is different from what it was before. She liked it better when Mr. Ruav praised her. What kind of feeling is this? She grabbed her cheeks with her hands and exclaimed, "This is really very strange." Meanwhile, the Duke was thinking about Renee. Who is she? When he sees her smile, all he can think about in his head is how much he wants to hug her. And this makes it quite sad. Is he himself under the influence of demonic power? If only he could feel again what he felt today. Just be it something more. After these thoughts, the boy stopped himself. What is he thinking about? Reina has only recently become an adult. She is too innocent. Then someone turned to the Duke and asked him to look at it. It was Gerald. The Duke noticed that he was now bursting into the bedroom. The guy explained that the purification potions seemed to work really well. Now is not the time for such jokes. He handed the book to the Duke. When asked what it was, he began to explain that it was a revised version of the scriptures that would be released next month. He asked the boy to pay special attention to the part of the legend about Logos. Now they openly declare that the Ruavs are demons. The Duke exclaimed that it was written there very well. He was even able to convince him. Gerald replied that this brainwashing of ordinary citizens is definitely aimed at making their family an object of hatred. Such significant changes were most likely sponsored by those who support the scriptures. In addition, in newspapers popular among ordinary people, they insult him, calling him a demon of temptation and portraying him as a terrible murderer. If these scriptures are actively bought up, they will not be able to get away with it. He's pretty sure this underwater snake has blonde hair. Cahill said that the Santella family has been in charge of the publication of sacred scriptures for generations. They have a monopoly. This is not an area they can influence. It is important for them to find out why they needed to do this. Gerald exclaimed that he couldn't just sit back. They must confront Santella. The Duke agreed with him, and he said that he relied on him. Rognac's many connections in high society and his business will help protect their reputation. Therefore, it is necessary to take care of the protection of Ruhala. The guy replied that he understood him. Then he will begin to prepare to visit the Marquise tomorrow and headed towards the exit. The Duke glanced at the open book. As long as you are human, you will always have both good and bad. This is how they plan to divide the world, on such concepts as angels and demons, like good and evil. The Duke exclaimed that the people were so stupid. Kahel called Rena to his place, and he said that he wanted to ask her some question. He immediately warned her that he was asking simply out of interest. If she doesn't want to, who cannot answer? She asked what he wanted to find out. The guy started saying that her dream was to start a family, and he asked if she had any ideas about what her husband should be like. She asked why he suddenly decided to find out about this. The Duke explained that usually the marriage of a close maid is arranged by the one she serves, but he is its only owner, and so I thought it was worth hearing her opinion, that's all. She immediately understood him and thanked him for worrying about her. Rena replied that she was in no position to choose, but nevertheless, if possible, she would like to become the wife of an affectionate man. The girl thought that His Excellency was very kind to her. Is there anyone who cares about his servants as much? If she gets married and has to leave the estate, that will be a little sad. Then suddenly the Duke asked a question. The gentleman, Sid. She immediately replied that everything was correct, and he was right. The Duke said that he always walks with a stone face and looks somehow frail. Rena exclaimed that although Sid is a little harsh, he is very kind to his loved ones. And he was thin because he ate poorly as a child and often shared it with her. She explained that in Kerouac he was the best groom, and in her opinion, the soul is much more important than appearance. It's good if a person is beautiful in both soul and body, but if he had been rotten inside, she would never have paid such attention. The boy thought that she was right. It turns out that he is definitely none other than a monster in a beautiful wrapper. He did not even try to look into the souls of others, but was only wary of them, justifying this by the suffering that demonic power brought him. After thinking a little, he looked at the girl and said that he must be disgusted with her. She immediately turned to His Excellency and replied that, to be honest, she was really very scared of him at the beginning. After all, that first meeting of theirs took place in a not particularly favorable environment. But now she thinks that he is quite a kind and affectionate person. After all, he managed to give her what she could only dream of. Even brought Uncle Theo and Sid here and helped them get settled. She can't even imagine how to repay him for his kindness. After which she turned to the Duke again. Rena remembered that he had recently praised her. He asked what she meant. Words of gratitude, but he should have said them. Does she realize that her existence is such a miracle for him? He asked her to sit down. This is what she truly deserves. The way Fidelia's family treated her was unforgivable cruelty. On the contrary, he regrets that he cannot pay enough attention to her, hiding behind stupid excuses. December is coming. The Duke asked Rena if she had winter clothes and warm shoes. The girl replied that she had a woolen coat that he bought her last time, but she didn't buy shoes. She didn't think she would need them. The Duke exclaimed that this would not do. We need to quickly take measurements and place an order. When winter comes, he goes sledding to Chardin, after which the boy said that the only maid who would keep him company was her. Since we've already started talking about this, we should prepare everything right away. He immediately asked the butler to call the merchant. Ardo obeyed. The merchant immediately appeared at the Duke's. Sable fur is divided into first, second, and third grade. Anything worse is not very good. These things won't last long, so how about getting a third grade? But the Duke replied that he only wanted the first grade. The merchant immediately thought that no matter how you looked at it, she was usually a servant. Who among the aristocrats would order such expensive clothes for servants? Besides, what an unusual secret agreement this was. He puzzled over who his employee was to the Duke, that he decided to spend so much money. Couldn't this be the case? That the Duke of Rouave has acquired a girlfriend. He was very curious and couldn't stop thinking about it. If this truth comes out, then the world of secular society will be turned upside down. The Duke looked questioningly at the merchant and asked if he wanted to tell him something. The merchant asked if he would take fur shoes, also of the highest quality, made from bearskin. Well, the boy replied that of course he would take it. When asked if they would take the cap, the Duke immediately replied that of course they would, it was also needed. As for the gloves and muff, they will also come in handy. He asked the merchant to prepare the best ones. He wanted everything ready as quickly as possible. If you need additional funds, don't worry. The merchant replied that, of course, he would deal with the order first. He will do everything as quickly as possible. Rina asked the Duke if he had acquired too much for her. Kakal replied that this was quite a bit. Time was running out, so he decided to buy only one copy of everything. But she did not let up and exclaimed that fur was very expensive. He asked if she was worried that his actions would somehow affect his condition. But that's not what she meant. There's just so much for an ordinary maid. The Duke replied that he had already told her more than once. That you need to get used to getting what you deserve. The Ruav family is one of the families of the defenders of the empire. The duchy is practically proportionate to the entire country. Therefore, in the eyes of other people, he looks like a king. And she is the only close servant of such an important person. That's why she can't wear anything. The girl realized that this was not for her, but for the sake of maintaining the status of His Excellency and the Ruav family. And she agreed with His Excellency. She exclaimed that now she would serve him even more diligently. Putting his hand on her head, he replied that she was coping quite well now. In his heart, he hoped that she didn't mind that he touched her head without permission, after which he kissed her head. She didn't expect such a gesture from him. The Duke noticed that this time it did not smile. She remained confused and thought that he had praised her so much. But she didn't do anything like that. She apologized and said she had something to do. Meanwhile, they were being discussed by the guy who saw Rina in the Duke's carriage. He was asked, considering all the circumstances, he realized that she was his maid. The guy replied that it was exactly like that. But there is, of course, a possibility that she is his girlfriend. After all, a gift in the form of a fur coat is quite expensive for servants. Ruav is not so shameless as to make such connections. On the contrary, he is closer to an innocent angel. The guy exclaimed that he was very surprised by the fact that with his condition and pretty face, this guy doesn't know anything about this. But it is definitely strange that he acquired a close maid. How she manages to be next to him every day and not succumb to demonic power. I'm sure it's not just like that. In any case, he asked to continue surveillance. She doesn't know what's wrong, but it seems the girl is not susceptible to demonic power. It is necessary to check the temples to see if there was anyone who left monasticism at her age. Meanwhile, the Duke was looking at the outfits they were preparing. It was quite impressive. Kahal was sure that Her Majesty would also be greatly admired. Rukwala replied that Madame Louise had said the same thing yesterday. She even promised to invest so that the quality would not drop. The Duke was very surprised that the Queen came in person. Rukwala was a little surprised that she turned out to be the same Madame Louise he had heard about. She must have quite a few more secrets. Her Majesty has come all this way to get here. Simply an amazing woman. The Logos aristocrats are progressive people with their own distinctive characteristics. But because of the young Mistress Santella, diversity in clothing has died out. Fashion has become monotonous. Everyone has only their own inherent beauty. So why does everyone deify only one member of society? He just feels sorry for the Queen, because all she could do was watch everything that was happening. Besides, the Duke was right when he said that Santella would try to destroy the business. He thought how she could plot such terrible intrigues with such an angelic face. The Duke remembered again how he was little. Santella asked him if he wanted to play with them. The father explained to his son that Ruav and Santella could not be friends. Their families worked together for the good of the kingdom, but they pursued different goals. Kakal thought that they should not be friends, although they have the same social status. But they never quarreled. His father told him that either way, he didn't want him to get hurt for trusting them. The father asked his son to remember his words. He should be especially careful with Duke Leonardo Santella. At that moment, he was too young to understand what his father wanted to convey. But having taken over from my father in the family business, I learned how families actually interact with each other, and his relationship with them became completely different. Santella asked the Duke if he had come to talk to her, just like the good old days. But the Duke replied that he had not come to talk about childhood. He wonders why she did this. She acquired a famous atelier and got her hands on all the latest dress designs. And besides, This workshop supplies clothes to the palace. This is an insult to the royal family. Santella exclaimed, looking at the boy. How could he think such a thing? She simply decided to pay for the outfits she would purchase in the future. She was just being kind. After all, the atelier suffered huge losses because of those who order outfits and then don't come to pick them up. Hearing accusations from him, a friend, is too much. Catchell asked Riedel not to joke like that. Does she really think that she can deceive the Ruh family? But how long does she think she will be able to deceive the queen with her pretty face? Has Santella really betrayed the trust of Her Majesty? The Duke exclaimed that this was very sad. Then the girl asked if unquestioning submission alone constitutes trust for him. Then Ruvahala called the Duke. Kahel said he got a little distracted. It's worth getting back to business. He asked what the situation was with losses. The guy replied that there were no significant losses yet. Rina's relatives said that the craftsmen are now busy with their first order. They are working on the queen's outfit for the New Year's ball. He's worried that Santella might start threatening employees, or they will try to spoil the finished products, which could affect the business. Then Ruahala asked if he could ask them for protection for their masters. The Duke asked the secret to send them to his estate. He thinks it will be safer to make clothes there. The guy asked him not to worry so much, but the Duke began to explain that the Ruav mansion was the safest place to hide from Santella, and the reason for his help is quite significant. Kahel told Mr. Ruwala that the doors of the Ruav house are always open for him. Rukwala's heart was beating so hard that it felt like it was about to jump out of her chest. The guy said that he was right when he said that Santella would try to destroy the business. The Duke thought that their family would never calm down. This trip will be quite difficult. Well, now Rina is next to him. This girl will definitely love Chardin's views. He thought, looking out the carriage window, that this time it might even be fun. Rina decided that she needed to put His Excellency's clothes in that cart. They hurried her, because we need to move out soon. Then someone called the girl, and he asked for help checking His Excellency's things.
She also went to help the butler.
Calling her to him, he asked the girl not to forget that she was traveling with His Excellency to serve him. She should not forget about her responsibilities. Anna, looking at the butler, said that of course she would remember this. But there was something uneasy in his soul. He was already hoping that the Duke would finally update his winter wardrobe after a long time. And he bought everything just for Rina. It seems that His Excellency is too carried away by her. Ardo was too worried about this. What if she decides to do something bad? Rina said that she was a little worried because it was her first time going to Chardin. First of all, you need to take care of His Excellency's outer clothing. Ardo exclaimed that this was of course important, but there was something else. The air there is very dry, so your skin can get damaged. He asked her to make sure that His Excellency applies the cream every day and takes care of the moisture. Then the Duke called out to him. He noticed that the man began to worry more with age. Ardo replied that in his eyes, the master is still the same little child. Cahill said that he would have looked at Gerald if he had heard such a thing. Next time, be sure to say it in front of him. Rina said that she would not disturb them and would go check the thing. Cahill asked the butler what was wrong with him. He noticed that his facial expression did not matter. Ardo leaned close to His Excellency's ear and said that he shouldn't get too attached to this girl. After all, they haven't figured out who she is yet. What if she does something bad? Cahill replied that he knew what he was worried about, and she's really right. They can't completely trust her just yet. But he knows one thing. It was thanks to her that his normal life began again. He means warmth and simple conversations between people. If he can thank her by buying just a couple of furs, then he won't have any trouble paying for it in the future. The butler apologized to His Excellency and said that he had allowed himself too much. Cahill replied that he understood that Ardo had warned him and was worried about him, and thanked the butler, after which, taking him by the shoulder, he said that it was time to go. While he was gone, he asked the butler to look after the suits, because Duke Santella is slowly starting to act. If something unexpected happened, the Duke asked to call Gerald immediately. Ardo told the Duke that he would do so and asked him to be careful. Rina said that then she would go too, and wished good luck to Mr. Butler. He in turn wished them a successful journey. Kako called the girl and extended his hand to her, saying that he would help her get into the carriage. She immediately thanked him. The journey from here to Chardin by carriage will take about 10 days. Besides, as the Duke explained, It is very cold in the northeast. This journey can be difficult for those going there for the first time. Reina replied, "Everything is fine. On the contrary, she can't wait for them to get there." Rena noticed that he looked happy. The boy exclaimed that he really liked Chardin. He hopes that she will love him too. While they were driving, the girl had already fallen asleep. Then suddenly, the driver turned to His Excellency. He explained that they had arrived at the hotel where they would be staying today. The Duke immediately woke up the girl. She began to blame herself for falling asleep in front of him, and she immediately apologized. Cockle asked her not to worry about it. Either the tiringly long ride in the carriage and even the halts in the camp are probably new to her, but he is proud that she endured everything. Today they will stay at a hotel, so it will be much better. In the Fidelia family mansion, she slept well on the stone floor. She was rather worried about him. The Duke thought that every time she worries about him so much, he feels like a wolf for whom a rabbit is worried. If they say that, she will most likely think that he is teasing her. When he started thinking, she began to worry and asked if something had happened. Meanwhile, some guys were sitting around the fire. One asked the other whether the other had seen His Excellency laugh. After the appearance of that maid, the situation in the mansion changed greatly. Maybe she serves God. He doesn't know why, but this is the atmosphere that reigns around her. The person who softened His Excellency definitely cannot be ordinary. They wondered where this girl would sleep. There is no suitable place for her here. "Nobody heard anything?" the guy asked. They all immediately became wary. Rena asked the Duke if they wanted her to occupy the room alone. The Knights didn't have enough rooms, so she couldn't afford it. She sleeps well in other places, so a stable would be fine. The Duke exclaimed that she was crazy, and he asked me not to talk nonsense. But the girl said that the room could accommodate 3 or 4 people. Cahill thought about what truth there was in Rena's words. If a maid takes care of an entire room, people will start to think she has privileges. He said that in this case, there is only one option. She listened to him very carefully. He offered to share a room with him. She was very surprised by his words, and she asked whether His Majesty would be comfortable. After all, there is quite a bit of space here. She can get a job in another one where the staff sleeps. The Duke began to get nervous. He asked if she was going to sleep among men. It's like she's already an adult girl. She doesn't understand anything at all. It couldn't understand what the difference was then. That there are young people there, that there is a Duke in this room. He continued to explain that if she slept in another room, who would wait on him? He asked her not to worry, and under no circumstances should you worry about anything. After which they wished each other good night. Rena thought about what he said to get comfortable. But the thought that he is next to her does not let her sleep. She decided that His Excellency seemed well enough, but he can't close his eyes. He could clearly smell Rena's scent. Cahill didn't think it was so difficult to be more sensitive than others. He couldn't calm down. I worried too much about this. And he hoped that Rena couldn't hear his heartbeat. He couldn't understand why he was so nervous. Rena asked if maybe he was uncomfortable because of something. After all, he tosses and turns for quite a long time. The Duke replied that everything was fine. It seems to him that this is just inconvenient for her. She must have been tired, because she didn't even get much sleep. She replied that it was not uncomfortable, but rather awkward. He asked if his presence really embarrassed her that much. Rena said that everything was not like that at all. The Duke explained that she had started the conversation so skillfully, managing to interest him, and now it seemed that he would not be able to sleep. In fact, it had been a long time since he had to sleep in the same room with someone, since his mother passed away. Cahill asked Rena if she wanted to stand up for a while. He wants to tell her about a method he often uses when he can't sleep, after which he handed her a glass of warm milk. He said it really helps him sleep. Cahill said that what she talked about earlier in the Baron's castle, she was also alone all the time. He remembers from her words that the stable-keeper did not treat her like a daughter. The girl replied that it was so, but they couldn't be around all the time. And besides, she was a junior maid of the lowest rank. We had to get up before everyone else to light a fire in the stove and get water. This room was closest to the warehouse and well. When he heard that it had been since she was 10, he decided that she had had quite a hard time. Rena explained that everyone lives like this. He thought that if she was 10 years old at that time, then she was even weaker than now. If you compare what she did then and what she did now, it's like heaven and earth. He can't believe it, Suddenly he's asleep. The boy exclaimed that if she had been recognized as the Baron's daughter from the beginning, she would not have had to suffer so much. Well, in that case, wouldn't she have been executed along with the Baron and his wife? The Duke concluded that she was still afraid of him. But Rena replied that now she doesn't. He said that it would be worth it. After all, he is still a monster. A terrible monster from which everyone runs. She looked in his direction in surprise, not understanding whether he is telling the truth now or just joking. But she told him that in this case she would be the monster's servant. And she asked if he would accept her. Then suddenly, she looked up somewhere and exclaimed that it was very beautiful there. Then Rena told His Excellency that she suddenly felt sleepy. He replied that it was very good and wished him good night. Closing his eyes, the boy remembered Boretsky's words. He asked him not to get too attached to Renee. Oh, that Ardo. If I really wanted to warn you, I should have done it earlier. He really doesn't know the feeling he is experiencing now. But he is now sure of one thing. He doesn't want her to leave him. He no longer imagines ordinary life, which does not exist, even if he later finds himself in danger. Meanwhile, the mistress called Elliot to her. The girl asked if something had happened. The lady explained that she had accidentally spilled the tea and stained her robe, and she asked her to tell the maid to wash it. The girl began to get nervous because the mistress called her a noblewoman, only to give something to the maid, after which the lady asked the girl how she was doing. She still didn't have a chance to ask about it. Has she already managed to get comfortable here? It must not be easy to do a maid's job. Elliot replied that everything was wonderful. She is grateful for the opportunity. The woman exclaimed that this made her happy. The maid said that she wanted to buy a dress. Elliot replied that it was. She's soon throwing a party for noble young people. She will also be present there. Well, if he goes out in old clothes, it will affect the authority of the lady. The lady laughed, noticing that she was worried about her. Elliot explained that it couldn't be otherwise. After all, her mistress is not just anyone, but Mrs. Riedel Santella, so she should take care of it. The woman thanked Elliot, and she said that she shouldn't worry about such things. The girl was already beginning to think that the mistress had prepared an outfit for her. She certainly hoped that the lady could really do this, after which she called her a real angel. But the woman said that it seemed like she had some kind of misunderstanding. Only young people from titled families can attend this party. Riedel explained that since she was not officially a noblewoman, she would not be able to join this evening. The girl exclaimed that she was the daughter of Baron Fidelius. Riedel said that she believed her words that the Baron died unjustly, but he is officially stripped of his title. Until it is restored, unfortunately, she is not an aristocrat. The girl began to get nervous and asked if Riedel really wanted to say that she was now just a commoner. There's nothing you can do, but this is the reality now. The woman began to explain that, especially for now, other nobles should not see her. Covering up criminals is a serious violation even for her family. She approached Elliot and asked if she understood them. The girl, with tears in her eyes, replied that of course she understood. Riedel said that on this day she could rest peacefully at home, and now she asked to join the maid who is responsible for the laundry. Riedel herself called the maid and invited her to drink tea together. Elliot thought that in addition to not being at such parties, it was also forbidden to be seen by other aristocrats. This is not at all how she imagined life here. But that's why everything is so unfair. Meanwhile, Rena walked next to the Duke. She admired the environment, marveling at how beautiful it was around. Then suddenly other people saw His Excellency. They were very surprised that there was a girl next to him. Is this really his beloved? Then a woman approached. It was the main maid of the Chardin Castle, Mary Ann. She told His Excellency that he had not been with them for a long time. The Duke replied that he was glad to see her. The woman said that they must be tired after such a long journey. Therefore, it is worth taking a bath with hot spring water. Throwing a sidelong glance at Rena, she asked the Duke how much he would order to prepare for bathing. Cahill replied that she should do it for him and Rena first, after dinner and for the knights, so that they too can take a swim. Curious people thought that she was truly His Excellency's beloved. Well, if you think about it, her outfit is quite luxurious for a simple servant. Finally, His Excellency had someone. Such a significant event. Rena said that she would see you after lunch. She needs to sort out her things, then meet with the head maid. Then the Duke said that she could meet the maid right now. He introduced the maid, explaining that this was his close maid Rena. She is the one who should always be by his side, and he asks her to remember this. People around were surprised and thought that this girl was from a high-ranking family. Reina began to worry and think about what to do. She didn't even come out to greet the headmaid properly. And besides everything else, she attracted the attention of others. In the village of Mrs. Marvin, the headmaid could not stand it when someone from the lower classes stood out. And they probably won't leave her alone here either. The Duke said that now everything seems to be all right. And Renee said that now you can go upstairs. One of the maids called Miss Rena. She explained that the water for His Excellency's bath was ready, and asked to check the water temperature. The woman asked not to worry about formalities. They're all just maids. Rena thought that she was also a commoner. Add to everything the illegitimate child of a criminal. Well, there's no point in talking about it. Nothing good will come of it. The maid was asked if she had finished with the bathing water. Rena turned to the headmaid. She asked permission to greet her again, and she introduced herself. The woman replied that she was pleased to meet you, and she asked her not to worry so much. She would really like to chat with her. She asked the girl to tell him how long she had been serving His Excellency. Rena replied that probably about 6 months. Mary Ann said that His Excellency seemed to value her greatly. It's interesting, because not much time has passed. Does her aura help her cope? Or she has very strong abilities. The girl asked if she meant the power that knights and priests have. But she has nothing to do with the temple. The woman asked if she drinks a cleansing potion every day. It's very expensive. Rena replied that she had never had anything serious to take something like that. Then the main maid asked how she copes with the demonic power of His Excellency. The girl was very surprised at what kind of demonic power she was talking about. The woman thought it was quite strange. Does she really know nothing about the Duke's curse? She never ceased to be surprised, and asked how then Rena became a close servant. How did she then manage to take a place under the Duke? Rena said that if you think about it, Ardo also mentioned something about some kind of curse. So what is it? The main thing the maid wanted to explain to her, but then their conversation was interrupted by the Duke. He noticed that today she was somehow taking longer than usual to prepare the bath. The Duke asked Mary Ann to check the conditions for the knight's overnight stay. The woman told Miss Rena not to worry about what she just said. This is how they usually joked among themselves, but the hero of their inventions, His Excellency, heard everything. Rena exclaimed that then it was not surprising, because His Excellency was very handsome. She would believe it if they told her that he actually had demonic powers. The maid said that she needed to hurry and quickly left. Rena asked this woman to teach her everything when there was time. And tell us about the local inventions too. Mary Ann replied that of course she would teach, and she added that His Excellency was forced to leave. The Duke told the girl that she did not need to learn anything. It still copes with its responsibilities perfectly. But she replied that she still lacked a lot of things. Cahill asked her sternly if she had forgotten what he told her before. Rena said that he told her to always act with confidence. She thought that she had forgotten His Excellency's order, and she also made a comment on what was said. No matter how pleasant the situation was between them, she behaved rudely, and then she asked for forgiveness. The Duke exclaimed that learning was good. He did not want to be harsh. I just decided to remind her that she should be more confident in herself, since she is taking the place of a close maid. And besides, Mary Ann won't have a free minute. This is the busiest time in Chardin. Rena apologized again and said that she hadn't even thought about it. The guy reassured her, explaining that she was not to blame for anything. After which, he said that he was very tired and asked if the water was ready for swimming. The girl replied that she was ready and offered him her help. But Cockle said that there was no point in helping him. She was probably tired too, so I sent her to take a bath too. Rena said goodbye, that in this case they would meet later with His Excellency. Just then she walked out the door. She began to think about what I should do now. From the very first day, she shows herself not at her best. All he does is make mistakes all the time. Just like some kind of idiot. In the castle of Baron Fidelius, she did not cry, even when she was beaten or starved. She couldn't understand why she was crying now. She just wanted to help him. The girl calms herself down. In order not to cry, she tried to pull herself together. His Excellency even brought Uncle Theo and Sid for her sake. May everything be fine as long as she continues to do her job well. Rena decided that there was no point in hanging around.
He will quickly tidy up His Excellency's bedroom and find something to do. First, you need to prepare the moisturizer that Mr. Butler asked you not to forget about.
Then she noticed that her bag had disappeared somewhere. She began to worry about looking for her bag everywhere. Looking behind the nightstand, she was sure that she had left it here somewhere. She couldn't just evaporate like that. Then the Duke noticed her, and he asked what she was doing here. The girl explained that she was looking for her bag with things, which suddenly disappeared. The Duke explained that the maid must have carried her to her room. It had to be taken apart first. Cahel told Renee that her room was an additional bedroom adjoining his. He asked her to go check if the bag she was looking for was there. The girl was very surprised and said that it seemed to her that the maid was given a separate room. The Duke explained that he had given her his second bedroom, which could be a problem. She looked at him questioningly. And I thought that usually nobles do not share merits on the floor, so in this family, everything is different. Rena decided that she had already blurted out the unpleasant matter to His Excellency before. He doesn't think it's worth adding something wrong again. Meanwhile, the Duke was seriously thinking, did that sound too absurd? Rena, in turn, also thought about it. She realized that there was still a lot she didn't know about the Duke's family. She bowed before him again and exclaimed that she thought it would be a private room. After which she apologized to him. The guy noticed that Rena's attitude had changed again. She began to behave the same way as in their first meeting. And what to do in such cases? The Duke remembered his childhood again, when he was walking through a clearing and saw a small rabbit in the grass. He thought that this rabbit looked very soft and really wanted to touch it. The boy ran after the rabbit. Well, I was running away from him all the time. The little Duke told the rabbit that he didn't want to hurt him. Noticing this, the butler turned to the young master and asked what had happened to him. Keiko explained that the rabbit was scared. What should he do to come closer to him? After all, he just wanted to make friends with him. The butler told the boy to let him show him something first. You need to start from afar and approach very carefully. And if you approach him too quickly, the bunny will immediately run away. Besides, once he feels threatened, winning his heart will be much more difficult the first time. The butler began to put gloves on his hands. He knelt down and carefully began to call the bunny to him. He asked him to go to him, and he said everything is fine and he won't hurt the bunny. The man explained to the boy that he needed to wait until he opened up to him. When the butler touched the hair, he told the young master that now he too could come to him. The boy exclaimed joyfully that it really worked. The butler asked if the boy wanted to hug him once. He advised him to relax his arms and gently hug the bunny. The little Duke took the bunny in his arms and was very happy about it. He felt that the bunny was very warm and soft. Such a strange feeling in my chest. And the butler asked the young master to remember that he should always move slowly and carefully. While the Duke was reminiscing about his childhood, Rena turned to His Excellency, not understanding what he was thinking about. She asked if he was uncomfortable about something. The guy replied that he was just thinking a little, and he asked her to tell him to serve him dinner in his room. The girl asked if he would eat in the main hall, if something had happened. The Duke explained that the tired and half-starved knights would not be able to enjoy the meal properly if he were present. In moments like these, it's better to carefully slip away from it. The girl laughed in response and exclaimed that His Excellency was very kind as always. The Duke smiled and replied that he was very pleased to hear this from her. He thought that gradually he would be close to her again. Meanwhile, west of Chardin, there is an estate of the Santella family, Lavanus. Between it and Chardin is Mount Calican. As soon as the first snow falls, its peak begins to swarm with monsters. The reason why the head of the Rouave family visits Chardin every winter is to pacify the monsters. Where and why do they appear? All information about them is shrouded in great mystery. Cahel was convinced that the reason lay in Santella. After all, the monsters appeared on the mountain just at the time when Leonard took his place at the head of the Santella family of the White faction. Damien Rouave expressed his suspicions several times, but Santella always cleverly eluded the investigation. A man entering a cave turned to a girl. He noticed that she still works hard today. It was Markella, sorceress of black magic. She sat in the lotus position with her hands up. The man noticed that she always works very hard. The woman, sitting with her back to him, said that His Excellency had already arrived. She asked how things were in Arden. The man replied that everything was fine and that the daughter was very ambitious. It looks like Ms. Riedel has found her place. In Logos, there is no one more worthy of the crown than her. I'm sure she will make a great ruler. He still could not forget the day when Riedel, who was only 3 years old, refused to obey the queen. When the queen asked her to come to her, the man said that he was very proud that she was his daughter. He wants to present Riedel with the crown, no matter what. This will definitely happen. Marcella asked Mr. Leonard if she was not here to fulfill his wish. The man asked what she thought the harvest would be like this year. The woman replied that so far everything was fine. She thinks that this will be enough to join the ranks of the dead monsters. This time I would like more large monsters. The woman calmed him down, asking him not to worry. As the number of magic circles increases, the size and number of monsters increases. This year, she thinks it will be possible to experiment with giving them some abilities. The man exclaimed that this was just perfect. She can send small ones or those that don't work out to Chardin. They should give Cahill a chance to use his magical powers. Sometimes he remembers how he discovered the circle, and at that time he was still only the heir. And then I wondered if it was God's blessing to make Riedel queen, and it was great luck that he met her. Marcella said that looking back like this, you could say it was a dramatic moment. When she was caught practicing witchcraft in the temple, it seemed to her that her song was over. But she was able to survive because he recognized her abilities. It was like salvation given by God. When he extended his helping hand to her, the man promised her that she would soon be able to walk freely outside the cave. Marcella was very happy about this. She said that he, the head of the Centella family, is called the incarnation of an angel. He has so much black magic. And she exclaimed, turning to His Excellency, that this was simply a wonderful sight. Meanwhile, Rena told the Duke that it was the first time she had seen so much snowfall outside. The girl asked the Duke if they could ride a sleigh in such conditions. Cockle replied that of course they could, and even better. He explained that since there was so much snow, they would be able to ride very quickly. He asked her to look at the deer. They are also very excited about the trip. Rena was even more surprised when she heard about the sleigh pulled by reindeer. His Excellency's breath was very close. It was a very strange feeling. The girl asked if they were the only ones going sledding. He asked in surprise, realizing that she did not want to spend time with him alone, and asked her to tell her if she was uncomfortable. Rena exclaimed that she didn't mean it that way. There just needs to be someone else to look after them. He explained that the knights would keep them company, but they will only protect her, and he needed to make sure the barrier around the mountain was strong enough before they set off. She asked if he really wanted to check it himself. The Duke asked her not to worry. He's just going to check on the animals, and he told her not to worry. Rena said that she understood him. I decided it was better to slowly prepare for the exit. She turned to His Majesty and said that he needed to apply cream to his face. Cockle told her that he could do it himself, and he asked me to give him a jar of cream. But Rena exclaimed that it was impossible. The butler insistently asked her to do this. He said the Duke simply dips his fingertips and applies them. She asked the Duke to sit down comfortably. Cahill said that he was not a child. The girl exclaimed that she still wouldn't let him do it himself. She thought that he shouldn't be too stubborn. After talking with Marianne, she was too polite. But it turns out that at such moments she can grumble. Should she make everything clear to her? Rena told the Duke that it would be a little cold. It was a strange feeling. It seemed as if someone was tickling. He asked her what she was doing. The girl explained that the butler told her so, and she began to continue applying the cream to his face. Rena explained that after applying the cream, you need to cover your face with your hands so that everything is absorbed well. The boy thought that this position was exactly the same as before a kiss. She said that everything was ready. The Duke asked her to hurry and prepare for departure. She brought him a coat. Cahill asked her not to worry, but rather to take care of getting ready herself. And he asked her not to forget her hat, muff, and fur shoes. Rena was very surprised. After all, the maid's duties include helping with clothes. The Duke began to dress himself and asked if she thought that he could not put on his coat himself. Rena thought that she had already been scolded recently, so she shouldn't mind too much. And she agreed with His Excellency, answering him that she would be out soon. And now they were already racing in a sleigh drawn by reindeer. What a pleasant wind it was! It feels like her heart is about to jump out of her chest. Until recently, she had a feeling of some heaviness. And thanks to sledding, she feels completely free. Cahill said that judging by the way her face turned red, It was time for them to take a break. Rena immediately agreed with him. Their gaze fell on the other sleds, where the cab driver told the other that he needed to be more careful. He, in turn, flew out of the sleigh face down. The guy who fell from the sled was told that he had to come to a complete stop before getting out. Sir Hiram was so excited that he forgot the basics of safety. The Duke asked the girl if she had ever been scared. She was very surprised and replied that she had a lot of fun. She didn't know that sledding was such a wonderful activity. Even the cold wind seems incredibly pleasant. Cahill said that he was glad that she liked it. He said that he would go away for a short time and asked her to rest quietly. Jeter will take care of her. The guy replied that of course he would take care of it and asked him not to worry about anything. Rena asked why he was walking alone. Jeter explained that if His Excellency was going hunting, it was more convenient for him when there were no people nearby. Rena said that if this is a hunt for animals, someone is needed to help. The second knight approached Sir Hiram and asked if he had forgotten that they were forbidden to talk about this. And he said, turning to Renee, that His Excellency is strong enough to cope alone. He asked the girl to go ahead, as a cup of warm drink would help her calm down. Rena exclaimed that she would take tea leaves from her bag and come right in. She asked the knights to go first, after which they already went inside, and she began to look for these leaves in her bag, which was located near sleigh. After all, they were definitely here. Then she heard some strange sounds. Meanwhile, the Duke was wondering how Rena was doing. Suddenly he had a bad feeling.